I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey. I just want to remind you, this is a work session, so there will not be any discussion from you, the audience. It will strictly be between the board and the administration team. So we were having a discussion on something that we wanted to add, but I think that if it's okay with you, you'll talk to HR and then send us a letter out tomorrow. Would that work?
Yeah, mine was totally different. Mine was just, I just wanted to know where we were.
Where we were. Well, we can ask that.
Yeah, you know,
So.
what we still had open.
So the first thing on our agenda is the wrestling program review, and I've heard several different things on this. So Nate's not here.
We have Eric here.
Eric,
Yeah,
want to share that with us?
yeah, I just was wanting to know what you wanted to know.
We had a parent come.
Excuse me, Madam President, I believe, don't we need to set the agenda?
We do. It's not on here to set the
It's not
agenda,
on
but we
here to set
do.
the agenda before we have our discussion.
Yeah. So let's, do I hear a motion to set the agenda?
I make a motion to set the agenda as it's before us.
I'd like to make a modification that we put the coronavirus 19 update first, since that's a really critical issue and school is starting.
So you want to move it to A?
Please.
Second first before we do that.
Didn't we have a second, Tammy? Okay. So
I'll
I,
second.
and Stacy seconded it. Let's see.
And then
I'm
discussion.
trying, discussion, Jack wants to move I up to A. Is there any
I would
discussion
amend
on
my
that?
motion to move that up,
To move that up?
A second.
and everything else just falls down, please.
Correct. Is there any discussion on moving that? Okay, let's call for the vote.
Right,
Right?
yeah, I'm out of order because I don't,
Okay, I'm sorry.
Aye.
That's perfect, Sherry.
sorry, I'm just, you're never first.
I'm never first, and I'm going, you're right, you're going to do it or not?
Schumeyer,
Aye.
Putin, aye. Flaherty.
Aye.
Paul, aye.
Cody is gone, it's excused, he had to do a fast trip to Albuquerque to pick up his wife, so. Anyway, that will go on. The coronavirus is the first thing on our agenda. Jack, you requested to have it on there, and I agree with you 100% on it, but let's start the discussion.
Okay, the main issue, of course, is the spread of the Delta virus. We are right now in the what's called the two high categories, where CDC recommends wearing a mask inside, are the substantial and the high transmission. We fell in the substantial, so I think it really is pretty critical to wear masks indoors. The Delta virus, as I'm sure most of you know, has affected younger people, and many of them have gotten quite sick. As some of you know, I did run this by Mark Myers, who is the Director of Infection Prevention at Southwest, and he agrees that this is something that we should do.
Okay, I also did some research, and I came up with, we had 17 variants been hospitalized so far and 0 deaths. I read the Colorado Sun today, and we are below 5%. So we're not at a critical stage by any means. And we're still on the recommendation, but not the requirement. So, and my computer's not opening up, but I've asked it to. But anyway, more discussion.
I'm seeing reports too that experts are telling CNN that most masks don't really work against it. I too am saying that we need to let these kids start school. We've got a high percentage of our staff who has been vaccinated. I think we're pretty safe. I think we're doing what's best for kids and for students and for staff.
I agree, and I think our assistant superintendent provided us a very well thought and well planned reopening and guiding us back into in-person this fall in a few weeks. I just think that we just go along with how that plan is guided for us, and our numbers are still really low in our area. I'm not, I think it's just leaving on the recommended, you know, if it's recommended, but if it's also on the individual's choice.
Sure. Oh, Chris.
I saw that CDC was categorized Montezuma County as a substantial increase, which does put us in a different category according to them. So I mean, if that's the case, and according to the plan that we have set, we're probably going to see changes coming from the Department of Health at county level soon enough. Anyway, the Delta variant is more of a risk to the professionals working in the healthcare profession, because they're just going to get sick of dealing with it. See reports all over the country that they're just quitting. Delta variant spreads as easy as chicken pox.
Yes.
And so, I mean, and masks there's debatable, you know, I understand that, but it's, you know, if you're wearing masks and you're stopping whatever type of spread that you could be given, and other people are cutting down their spread until vaccination levels get high enough, just like we've had high vaccination levels on polio and measles and chickenpox and every other infectious disease that's out there. That's the only way you stop it from mutating. You have to stop it from having a host and ability to grow. If you don't stop it from mutating and it's spread, I mean, it's going to eventually turn into something far worse. Because it's, so for me, I agree that we should just stick to the plan, but that's, I can see that changing.
Oh, absolutely, it can change in a heartbeat. So I have this website and it's, Sherry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna, my opinion that, yeah, go as planned, no masks, unless you want to. And then I'm not sure on our opening plan, if it said on there, because I know if it was talking about bullying, there will be no bullying of anybody wearing masks, but I'd like to also read no bullying of people not wearing masks as well, because that's out there as well. So, and I don't know if it's stated that way, but I mean, just the bullying one way or the other.
And might I add, so we did present the citizens guide at the last board meeting, and you did approve it. Thank you. And Ms. Richards did an amazing job working with many of our directors and admin. I might add that within the citizens guide, in the welcoming letter to it, I wrote, as you read this document, please be aware the citizens guide will be adapted and modified as needed based off of public health recommendations. Montezuma-Cortez School District RE1 highly recommends to use multiple and varied strategies in order to combat coronavirus 19 variants. Montezuma-Cortez School District RE1 recommends masking, constant use of sanitizer, social distancing, and frequent hand washing. And I just want to say on that note, and to that, that's in there in order to support where we're going. It is my hope that this coronavirus 19 does not come back, but it is. And, unlike measles or polio or other diseases that have vaccinations, the state has not required it for kids and for folks. And so our kids are really the most vulnerable, and so are our elderly. And I know we have a lot of older populations in this community. And so that is where I worry. We have an older population of staff, and we do have a population of staff that is not vaccinated. And it is, as an employer, we have opportunities about masking. I believe right now we leave this document as it is. We do understand that the records of coronavirus 19 it's a 10-day lag. And so tomorrow I'm starting to have meetings with county officials in regards to getting a better pulse on this. The coronavirus 19 will be a standing agenda item
Yes, it should.
for all work study sessions and for governing board meetings. And you will be informed. I've been having Ms. Ramsey inform you all on what's happening on a weekly basis, and it might come quicker because, as we know, it can change in 3 days with the amount of beds being taken. And that's one of the ways in which the health department rates where we are, whether we're substantial or not. And we have, so last year we had several different committees when it came to health. And I've been working with Ms. Richards. We've been working on the committees to update them and make them manageable for this year, because we know a lot of things already. We've learned a lot of lessons from last year. And so it's our goal to take those lessons, but to redefine our committees, have, in a sense, our stakeholder committee or the group of citizens that all have a right to a voice and on how we manage things, but also an internal group where we manage our own organization. As I said, my tagline is be kind, be safe, be healthy. And that's for all of us. And it gets really scary and we can become very reactive. And the hope is that we don't get to that point again. I hope we don't get there. And I think Ms. Richards has some things to add about the committees that she's working on right now.
Yes, last year I had the privilege of being on the committee that Montezuma-Cortez District put together and chaired, and we're starting that up again on Thursday. It's the Health Advisory Committee. It's comprised of all of the health officials, Dr. Aiken, all of Mark Myers, the different health officials from Southwest Memorial, those who serve on the COVID team, also the public health nurse who's in charge of COVID tracing, the public health department. All of the area superintendents are invited, as well as their lead nurses in their districts. Mr. Schudemeyer, I believe you're invited to that as well as a board representative.
I've really been on there more as in a professional capacity as a statistician, because I've read a lot of the literature, and I understand sample sizes of variants and those sort of things. And Sherry was basically more the representative of the board.
Did you get an invite?
But I didn't
We'll
get
need
an
to-
invite either, so I would.
Okay, our new health director sent those out based on the list from last year, but I'll make sure that before tonight's over, you both have an invite. I'll
Yeah,
do it
because
myself.
it's important for him to be there because of his statistical background. And I report back to the board and then Jack supplements what I forget.
Excellent. So we'll start those up again and then we'll go back. We'll start every week as we did last year. And then as we can, we'll either go less or more depending on the virus itself and how it manifests. So that meeting starts up and then our internal group will begin meeting after those meetings. We've already started talking and working together, but that advisory committee begins on Thursday.
At 8.
I don't believe it's at 8 o'clock. I'll send you the invite in a few minutes.
Okay, yes.
Okay, yeah,
Send me
because-
that. Well,
I will. Thank you.
So what I'm understanding, what I'm hearing then is going to continue as we started. I'm not going to go through my data that I have then. And know that we're subject to change as the code changes, as it changes. Now, my information was current as of yesterday, because I contacted some health officials and asked them for this data. And this is what they said, they said, now it will change on this. They told me that there had been 17 hospitalized and 1 death. So, yeah, and then, like I said, I read the Colorado Sun today, so that, and it pretty well backed up what they said, but it also said that it changes on Wednesday. So is that all we need? We're going to continue as is. We highly recommend that you wear masks, but it is your choice. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. All the teachers had the opportunity to have their shots last year free. We set up drive-by shots.
Yeah, the Blitz.
So that they could all get their shots and.
And we're doing that again.
We're going to do it again?
Yes,
Because we'll have new teachers.
right. We're doing it again.
Tammy?
No. Sidebar, said it was a pretty high percentage of.
Yeah, I think it
staff
was
that
like 80%
vaccinated, like
or,
83%.
yeah, it was a high percentage. And so, and if you choose not to get a vaccine, it is your choice. It is not, it's not for us to dictate. It's our choice to do it. So, okay. Wrestling program.
And may I bring up with the wrestling program, so we had a concerned citizen that spoke here during the last board meeting in regards to the wrestling program and in a sense restructuring the wrestling program due to the size of the team and the ability to compete, as well as female competitors, I believe. And I did speak with, what's Dave's last name? I did speak with Mr. Robinson yesterday in regards to the program. And we will be having further discussions, but I wanted to see if you had something to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, we've been happy with the program. The size of the program has varied over the years. 3 years ago, it was a full team. Last year, it wasn't a full team. And so the numbers come and go as they do kind of every sport over time. The coach has been very successful in his tenure. Do you remember how long he's been there? It's been close to 10 to 12 years, probably 10 to 12 years.
There's a tenure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's sent 35 different state qualifiers to 35 different wrestlers to state, 17 were on the podium. 3 state champions and 5 second place, and go down the list of all the different places. What really sticks out to me about the program is that twice at Page Invitational, which is a 42-team invitational.
It's a huge term.
It's a huge tournament. We have received the character award twice on that. Out of that many teams that show up to that, to get that twice in that short of time, I think it says a lot about the program. So it's there were some challenges last year. We investigated everything. We looked into everything that came up and followed appropriate action at that point in time. So,
And in regards to the conversation that I had with Mr. Robinson, he had mentioned that he had addressed the issues, ran thorough investigations to see whether incidents had occurred, which they didn't find it substantiated. And wrestling during COVID is challenging enough. And so I could see why the numbers would be down just because of what last year was, being close to someone and,
Yeah, you get face to face.
literally.
Yes.
And so I think, I know we have been having a conversation and we will continue with the program, but we will also be open to following through with things that we see.
And Mr. Roberts and I continue to talk about the program, not just that, but all the programs. And, if we were to look to cut or need to cut a program, what would we be looking at cutting? Wrestling is not the program we would be cutting. Yeah, the numbers are low, but when we look at what's coming up, what's supported by the community as far as youth programs, wrestling is a very highly supported program, and so, yeah, the numbers are low. They do come and go. I mean, there was one year, probably remember, Stacy, where there were 5 wrestlers in the program, and yet we ended up 8th in the state because we had such success with those 5 wrestlers. So,
Well, and the community, they start their kids wrestling at 5 years old. I know I did. My son wanted to start at 5 and he did. Yours too, right? So, and then you told me that CASA now has a girl team, so we're okay on Title IX.
Well, yeah, JASA now sanctions girls wrestling. But if we were to add girls wrestling to our,
yeah, we do not have that at this point.
we don't
Yeah,
have girls
well-
wrestling, then we would be out of compliance with Title IX. Right now, we're in compliance with Title IX.
So we need to,
And so the
Keep-
girls
keep our
can't, because CHASA now sanctions girls wrestling, girls cannot wrestle on a boys wrestling team. Because they're
But they can go to a neighboring school that has
but
that.
there's no
Yes.
neighboring school around here.
Dolores.
Dolores has a girls
Yeah,
team.
I didn't realize that.
Well, then, so we
Yeah.
can send them to Dolores.
So they can go, yeah, just like,
Like
we
a
have-
golf team.
just like people come in for golf or come in for soccer, they can
Yeah.
be for that.
Okay.
That's because we don't have it. That's not the case if we have the program.
Right.
So
This is kind of on the subject, off the subject, but did we keep girls soccer or was that let go?
we had to drop it last season,
Okay, but not forever.
not forever. I mean,
Okay,
we just didn't have the numbers that showed up.
okay,
And we don't know if that was a COVID thing. We don't know what it is.
okay.
But the numbers were not there to be able to support a team.
Okay.
So we're waiting to see what we got this year.
Yeah, I mean, we are offering it. That is the plan. So we did not drop any sports programs from last year to this year, or
Perfect, thank you.
even the year before that.
So I think that we've taken care of the wrestling program.
I just
Go ahead.
one quick question. The mother who spoke last month, did you taken the time to speak to her about her concerns personally with the rest of the program?
We had many meetings last spring, yes. I mean, I know that just came up at the last board meeting, but I can say that Ms. Hawkins and I sat down with her, Mr. Robinson and I sat down with her, as well as with the coach. So yeah, we did at that point. I have not since the last board meeting. But
Did you
And-
respond to it?
Yeah, and I'll reach out to her.
If we have the information.
Mhm,
I think it just would be in best interest
Yeah.
to
mhm.
that parent or any
Yeah.
parent.
If they
that
bother
made it
to come.
all the way up to us,
Mhm.
then those conversations didn't satisfy that parent. So
So-
now it's on discussion for us, that in turn, we need to show that same respect to that parent or parents
Let them
and
know.
have that follow-up discussion, not just let it fall.
Right, so if you would
Mhm.
talk to them, I'd appreciate it. Any more discussion on this?
Favor of keeping it.
You are. in favor?
Yeah, I was in
Well,
favor.
that's what we're doing.
Yep, yep, no. State name, whatever, yeah.
So the next item is critical race theory discussion. And I will tell you, I put it on there because I've got so much mail and stuff telling us that our curriculum, our language arts curriculum is not, it's critical race, and it has modules in it. And so I visited with Stacy a little bit, and then I visited with Risha also, that possibly what we should do, and then I visited with Jim. Maybe we can get 2 board members to review it and 2 community members to sit down and review it. Stacy has volunteered and Cody has volunteered. So and if you want to do it, then we just have to post the meeting. I mean, because I think the more eyes that look at it, the better, but it's easy just to post it and let us know when the meeting is.
And I believe Jeanette Ward has volunteered to be on the committee.
Who?
Jeanette Ward, in one of her emails.
Lynette.
Oh, Lynette, I'm
Lynette.
sorry, Lynette,
Okay.
Lynette Ward, yes, sorry.
So, we need to decide on, do you want to do it as a board or do you want to let Risha do it or Jim do it?
Let me just ask one question
Sure.
first. Risha, do you have any plans to offer a course in critical race theory?
I did not have that plan,
Okay,
but if we're up to discussion, did you have that in your plans?
No, I do not have that in my.
well, I sent you, there's an interesting article by the superintendent at the Montrose County School District and basically, and she's gotten flack from both sides. And what she says is basically, this is not a course that we're going to teach. There are, she talks of, basically what they do is follow the state. She follows the
Yeah.
state
Right.
recommendation. So, I mean, I've spent probably about 20 hours looking at this, and it's incredibly complicated.
Yes,
I
it
mean,
is.
and there are terms that I had never heard of before. I'd say if I were teaching, I might be able to teach it to, say, a college junior or senior who is in sociology or pre-law. The idea of getting this whole business of all of these interactions, I mean, there's terms that I've never seen before. To even consider the idea that you're going to teach that to a high school student, I'm sorry, it's
Yeah.
just
Or a middle.
beyond, or a middle school, or
Elementary, any
and
of
we, with all due respect to our wonderful teachers, I think I could come close to betting the house. We don't have a teacher that could teach it, even if the board
No,
wanted
not
to.
correctly, yeah.
Or.
Which I think is a
Yeah.
In our
really,
district.
I think it's a dumb idea.
Oh, good.
So there you go.
So it's just backing up what you just said, it's even more reason for us to continue with that committee and having 2 board members get with Jim or
Yes.
whoever that is and go through it fine tooth comb to make sure nothing
Right.
as to the critical race theory has embedded into, without our knowing. I think we need to do our due diligence,
I agree.
make sure that it's not in there.
And Tammy, if you want to be a part of it, then you just, Jim, are you okay with 3 board members?
Sure.
And then
I mean, I'm,
Deb, if you will, just whenever they meet, you can post it. Okay? Okay? And then we have the agenda out and you can be a part of it.
I do have some information. I don't know if you guys are interested now. I emailed
I-
everybody.
Yes, I read it.
Basically, this is the position from Grapevines, which is the publisher of Wit and Wisdom. And it explains their position, and it also includes, our board policies that kind of went into this decision. So if you would care for these hard copies, I certainly will share those with you.
I told Jim this afternoon, I really appreciate it because I knew the policies, but it was sure nice for him to refresh it.
And our policies are in there.
Yes.
And Ms. Richards and Mr. Parr have taken the time to, look at that information and see whether they align. And so hopefully that'll be helpful for you.
So Jim, I'm kind of putting the monkey on your back because
Okay.
you've been talking to people.
Sure.
So do you want to call 2 or 3 community members to get them
I can
on?
do that. Sorry.
You know who's been contacting you?
Yes, I do.
And
And actually, we already have kind of a set meeting anyway, so
okay,
at least one of them, I certainly entertain some.
okay. So, and then at our next board meeting, you'll report to us?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Jim, can you speak to because I read this article as well. And in it states that the state of Colorado has adopted standards that are the expectations of what students need to know at the end of each grade level and of course. Teachers are required to teach the content outlined in the standards. So when we adopt new curriculum, that has to be vetted by the state or make sure that it adheres to the state.
Well, yeah, we definitely, we've actually run into this problem in the past. We've had reading programs that were not in line with what the state was requiring. And therefore, had to make some changes because they were just not up to snuff. I mean, you know, our primary focus for bringing on any new program is to make sure that it aligns with what our state expectations of our kids are. And so yeah, and in fact, I do have another, and you guys have seen this as well. This was Jeanette Allen's board report from when when it was adopted, and it highlights the process that we go through. So I know you've seen it, but if you'd like it as like a just kind of a reminder of what we go through to bring something on board, you're certainly welcome.
I would like to.
I want to clarify that, just add on, the state does not have to vet material at a local level.
Right.
They do not.
Just has to
So,
meet the
right, the
standards.
only area that Jim was referring to is under the READ Act in the state of Colorado, and that passed in 2007, I believe, and that they do have certain curricula that they want school districts to use. They give you a choice, but it's local choice.
And they
But as
are-
far as the other subjects, they do not vet your material. They test your students every year on state testing to make sure that you are covering material from the standards. The state tests are the standards. So we can choose whatever we want to choose at a local level, and they have a really, the process in our policy is really superior, so.
And one thing I might add as well is we did post the curriculum for the required amount of time for public viewing. We have had a conversation based off of the feedback we've received from community members and constituents that we can probably be better at communicating
Absolutely.
that we do have curriculum open for the public to view. And so based off of some of the emails that we have read, that I have read personally, we are looking at some of the systems and processes that we have utilized in the past, and what can we do to listen to the voices of the people that we serve in order to ensure that we're vetting a curriculum that people with a lot of different moral concerns, ethical concerns, opinions, faiths, people have a lot of different opinions, and it's our job and it's our duty to listen. And so, and then, we get informed recommendations from folks, and then we can bring that to you all, and you can make an informed decision based off of feedback and based off of your experience and professionalism. And I think that's fair.
If you go on CDE, Colorado Department of Education's website, they will have the standards for each grade level on there, which is phenomenal. I do that quite often. At my last CASB meeting, Angelica was, she's the president of CDE. And she was saying that where they're going with different things, and right now they're not real happy with the READ Act. And so they're reevaluating it to determine if they're going to keep it or change it. So just know it's always a process that changes.
Just so I can, now, when we adopted that curriculum, at that point, didn't we clarify that any critical race theory be removed from all of that?
Mhm.
And so has that been, and that's what this committee is for, to fine tooth comb all of that?
Yeah.
Because at that point, I think there was just a couple of things that were removed, and then come to find out not all of it was removed, or is that?
Or it was embedded.
Well,
And they're not, it was more embedded and not blatantly in your face.
Well, and I do think at that time, thinking back to that meeting in the spring, there was also some issue with the availability of some of the
Yeah.
resources. 7th grade materials were not available
Right.
for viewing.
Because I couldn't view it. I went in and I had to do a rush review because of the time frame and Jeanette was wearing so many hats that she could only give me so much time.
Sure.
And so it was a rush review, and I feel like I failed my constituents because I rushed it and didn't review it completely.
Well, I would say in my office space right now, I have all of the middle school books, the novels. I have all of the teacher editions of the elementary teacher guides and workbooks and novels. And to Dr. Vanderway's point, was to increase the rigor for our students. So we did meet those state standards that we're trying to comply with. So it's, it's not, it doesn't look like things that we've used in the past. So, but that really is more of a testament to us trying to up our game with our kids and not so much about, there's something embedded in there, which I don't believe there is, but.
Okay.
So, Jim, I'm going to ask you something. I'm sorry, but could you send me a list, send the board, not, just email, text us a list of the novels that they're reading?
Absolutely.
At every level.
At every level.
level.
Yeah, because I'm concerned because I've seen some novels and stuff come out and it's so dark.
Sure.
Yeah, it concerns me that are they only reading dark material or do they give anything light and joyful? I mean.
Yeah, well, I mean.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't want to, I got frustrated because my kids graduated school and I got frustrated because almost every novel they brought home was nuclear war
Yeah.
or something like that. And I'm going, yeah, I enjoy that, but I also enjoy light
Right.
too.
Well, my take is that there's kind of a mixture of things.
It should be a
It's,
medium range, yes.
but yeah, I'll definitely send you the list so that you guys can have access.
I would appreciate that because a lot of people have asked me if I've seen the novels. And
Sure.
Madam Chair, may I say something?
Sure.
No matter how strong or weak a curriculum might be, it all rests in the instructor
Yes.
and how they deliver it. And so I say that to say that our policies are very good. Jim and I looked over them today, and the board has put together strong policy around teachers leaving their persuasion or their thought and input out, and that it's up to the principals to ensure that that doesn't happen.
Right.
And if they add any supplemental materials to what has been approved, it has to go through the principal. And so the board has put together very strong policies around that. Most of the problems you see today are not necessarily what the curriculum has. It's the delivery of that. So we have to do our due diligence and follow policy, and Drew and Eric have to be cognizant of what's going on in those classrooms. And it's not just the language arts material.
No,
It's history, it's everything.
It's
So-
math, it's the whole thing.
So I just wanted to say, I really love the policies. I think they protect our students very well. We just need to follow our policies.
I agree. Thank you. I agree with you 100%.
You mentioned that they found something in that curriculum that was removed.
There was a couple of things, if I remember right, didn't
What was it?
a couple of novels.
Was
or-
it by,
Sorry. I received the email from the net board today, I believe. and she-
no, this was earlier. We reviewed it. Maybe it was when Jeanette was still here.
Yeah, I think Jeanette was still here.
And they were going to remove, I want to say a cubicle, but I don't, that's not the right word. Module. They changed,
So
they took a
we'll only
module.
teach, we'll only be able to cover modules 1 and 2, and I think there was some concern with module 3. I believe,
Maybe that
but
was
we're
it,
not
yeah.
going to teach module 3.
Okay. Okay,
And I think Jim had copies of all the novels that were in modules 1 and 2.
sure. I figured he did, so,
Should be shared.
I figured he did.
Do you have the information on module 3?
I do not have it on me. No.
I sent you, Jeanette, before Jeanette left, I asked her to send me her email that had all the links to these
Uh-huh.
literatures, because at this point, she didn't have hard copies.
Right.
So
all on-
tonight, I've been emailing, so I've emailed you, Stacy, and I'll email the rest of the board
Please.
one at a time to make
I get,
sure.
Yes.
for me, I
because we
just
got
like to
state
So
aid.
you can see.
I'd like to
link
see
into-
what is acceptable, what is considered critical race theory, since it's a collegiate academy.
Yeah, it's.
So I don't,
yeah.
because it's like, what is it?
And I tend to agree. I appreciate what
Yeah.
Liz Richardson said
Yeah, I
about
really appreciate it.
the presentation of it.
That is entirely true.
And how,
I'll send you a
And-
website.
and
that I
just-
found.
For your knowledge, I talked to Risha, and I told her, I thought that she need to make sure to follow policy, which means that we teach facts and not opinions. If a student walks out of the classroom and knows their teacher's political persuasion, that teacher has failed. So I want facts. I don't want them to talk about, I really believe critical race theory is so very important. I don't want to hear that. Or I don't want to hear, what, critical race theory is just garbage and it needs to go. I don't think our kids need to hear that. They just need facts. Does that make sense? You see what I'm saying?
Well, and I can tell you that Drew and I had a conversation yesterday where we were talking about that as well. And, we both agree that our jobs are really apolitical. I mean,
They should be.
We're not,
And that was my stress.
yeah, we're not
Yeah.
pushing positions. We are here to teach. And, other aspects that probably, that comes from other places, but that's not our position.
And when you teach a novel, there are opinions. And I know because I've taught language arts, but you do have to, but you can guide the opinions into facts. If you have this, then show me why in the novel or the short story. So, yeah. So apolitical, I like,
Yeah.
that's what I think we should stay. Okay. Is there anything else about critical race theory?
So in our policy, and does it specify the repercussions? If because if it's handled at the school level, so Mr. Chandler is dealing with a certain teacher, is it more of a, like, we don't have any policy on what what do you want to call it?
Well, if I might add, generally speaking, when someone breaks policy, it's the policy that, if you don't adhere to the policy, then that's a reason to be reprimanded.
Right.
And so it depends on the severity of
Okay.
the incident that happened. But it's the policy states the way things must go.
Okay.
And if things don't go that way, like let's say, in regards to unprofessional conduct, it depends on the kind of unprofessional conduct of whether a teacher gets a letter of reprimand, a letter of direction, administrative leave, and or a verbal communication, or a verbal communication with what I like to do is I like to talk to a teacher when I was a building principal, give them the policy, say, this is what you did not do. It's a great opportunity to train your whole staff on that one specific, whether it's unprofessional conduct or teaching your opinion in a classroom. Then you train the whole staff. And then if that person does it again, depending on the severity, then you meet with them again and you follow it up with documentation, such as an email, goes in their file, and then you start to build evidence. And then that's kind of the process you work based off of policy. It's the process that you start building a case for, do we keep this person employed? Do we put them on administrative leave? And that's one thing, when I have my next principal and admin meeting, one of the conversations is, because actually they all just started, so I haven't really met everybody yet. So it's very exciting, but one of the conversations will be just based off of evaluation and policy, because for me, I guide my decisions and what I do based off of policy, law, and keeping our organization safe from lawsuits, as well as trying to meet the needs of my staff, my faculty, my students, parents, and the community that we serve in this valley. So that's how we kind of do business. And that's where Ms. Richards and Mr. Parr went through the policy to identify what could be our next steps. And as I move forward with our administration, we have to work off of policy. And it's a challenging thing, but we have to hold people accountable for their behavior when they choose to take choice into their own hand, because that's not their job.
Right.
And so it's evaluation is critical into this kind of thing. And it's critical for me and Ms. Richards also to be in the classrooms and to walk around and be present and show up and look and listen and support our administration and Mr. Parr as we move forward. So
I think you have to be a little careful though, when you're talking about the critical race theory. That's
Well, I was using that for an example.
right. But that's very different because I can give you 200, 300 references to different opinions by legal scholars on what particular things mean in there. And there are 4 states that have passed laws that basically prohibit the teaching, but they're so vague. I mean, they're clearly going to be lawsuits, and if you do this, you're going to spend half your time talking about things that even well-trained people don't completely understand. I mean, you could say, gee, if I'm a teacher teaching government, I can't talk about, say, the role of government in protecting people who are at risk. That would be a violation of it. So I mean, it's awfully nebulous, and you just have to be awfully careful. And
Yes, we do.
and you want teachers to be able to teach what they're supposed to be teaching without fear that that they're going to be disciplined or sued or God knows what, fired.
And one thing I might add too is the companies that we get our curriculum from, they're generally quite well vetted, and they've been all across the board with all different kinds of topics. I can honestly say I wasn't here during the process of, unwrapping the standards within this curriculum. But generally speaking, new curriculum is vetted from a lot of different perspectives by some very intelligent people. And so, that's just something to add.
That may be true now, but it certainly hasn't been true in even the very near past, because Texas basically controlled a lot of it, and it was history from the perspective of white males.
Right.
You females didn't count much
No, we still don't.
in any of that.
Just to help me understand it a little bit. So as an educator, if you guys had a novel that was written about a Black person's perspective of growing up in apartheid South Africa and what it was to them, would that be considered? I mean, how do you,
No.
what is critical race theory, and how does it manifest itself in K through 12?
I really think that you need to do some research yourself, but no, history, I taught, I can't even think of the name of it, but where the slave ships are bringing slaves over and everything, so I taught that, so yeah, it's not just all white. You have to balance it, you have to do history. You don't do opinion, that's the whole thing. You want to stay with history. I wish I could remember the name of the novel that I taught, because it was really an awesome one. But it talked about the African chiefs selling the Black people as slaves, for warring tribes, and then the conditions on the slave ships. And this one get wrecked, and the boy in the Cayman Islands. And it was just a phenomenal novel. That's not critical race theory. And it's a novel, but it took it out of history.
How does this group identify that in K through 12? What standard do we hold them to identify that and make sure?
I think that one of the things that Jim and the group is going to have to do is come together on a good definition of critical race theory and then go from there. And I trust Tammy and Stacy and Cody to be fair and deal with it fairly and clearly.
And I do think there was, some foresight again in our policy to a certain degree. It's file IJ, and it really lists kind of
Yeah.
what we are expected to do as educators.
Right.
As it relates to any topic, it doesn't necessarily mean critical race theory,
No,
but
that's new.
things like the sixth bullet or the sixth point is place principle above personal opinion and reason above prejudice. So, we're really trying to take this into consideration with not just this, but all the things that we do. I think in this particular instance, what we found was that at the middle school level, we didn't have any. There was nothing to really, it was just kind of a freelance situation where we didn't really have a curriculum to look at. And this was a continuation of what we were already doing at K-5. We felt strongly about the rigor and the practice in general. And, following these policies, which is where, we expect our educators to be. I feel like we have a good foundation of handling whatever issue might come up. I don't know if that helps Chris or not.
I think your question is very warranted, and it shows that you're an intellectual person and yet you don't have a solid understanding, nor do any of us. But I think it proves that there's some education that's needed in that. I think in the sheet that Jim provided, the 11 pieces from the Tennessee Senate bill are the anti-definition of what critical race theory is. And it's basically the discrimination for anyone's race or sex. And then it's the propagation of that. It's the indoctrination of that into culture, society. And we all know that that often begins in schools. So I think if you read that first page, those 11 bullets, it defines it well for you. And but your question is very eye-opening, because we as educators need to be very clear to our own staff what this is and what this isn't, because it is a very important time in our society right now.
Yeah.
And the main thing is, I do not want a bias taught.
I guess that is my concern.
Yeah.
It's like we can talk about what we consider
Yes.
critical race theory, but it's really on there.
And what we need to
It is.
So how
It is. So
are
we
we going to
need
make
to
sure that
define
they
it
can
correctly.
identify?
And what we need to do as well is, right now is kind of a perfect time because we're about to onboard all our staff. And so one of our goals is to create, in a sense, Montezuma-Cortez School District RE1. This is what we are and who we are as a unified, and then what's happening in our schools, and create one voice for certain topics. And I don't mean certain topics, but as we progress, different topics will be addressed, whether that be critical race theory or whether that be, whatever we see when we're in buildings or what administration identifies. But it's in getting one voice, and this is what we see as critical race theory, and this is what we believe should happen in our schools. And with the policies, to create a structure and to allow teachers the opportunity to ask questions too, because it's a training tool. I don't necessarily, I'm a teacher, so if I expect something from a teacher, I want to teach them what my expectation is. And I want to support my administration in teaching what we discuss here and what our outcomes are. And so it has to be a level playing field for people to be successful. And that's the goal, because once our teachers are successful, then we can teach what we're teaching in a way that's politically correct.
I think, and you made the point, Rich, I think if we're going to do this, it's important to agree on what some group of people here actually think critical race theory means. Because as I said, I've looked at some of the literature. I'll bet if you spend a few days looking at a couple of 100 publications, you'll find 30 or 40 different
Oh, yes.
opinions as to what
They have,
critical
yeah.
race theory means.
So,
But that's no different than any other topic. I mean,
So-
there's always opinions on every topic.
Well,
There's different
okay.
topics on that.
Anyway.
Now, let's keep
The one
going.
thing that I want to,
Okay.
I think we really want to, we focused on the English part of it. There's the history part of it too, and I think that we really need to
Right.
focus as much on what our history teachers are teaching, and that it's not an opinion, it's actual history also.
And I think it spreads to all content
It
levels.
does. I don't
It's,
think
it's really
Yeah.
vast. Because
Absolutely.
if I'm an elementary teacher, I'm teaching all of it.
Yeah.
And so,
Right.
So what I heard you say is you want to keep an open line of communication between teachers and administration and not feel,
And-
not let
and-
them feel threatened if they ask the wrong question.
no, no,
So you want
no,
to keep it open so they can come to you and discuss and ask and make sure that they're doing what.
well,
So-
and adding this to our onboarding. As
Yes.
we onboard, we can create something that defines what we as Montezuma-Cortez School District RE1 defines as, defining the policy. And then stating, this is new to you and we will work with you to help build your capacity in, this, that, and the other. Because it's like anything. Teaching is kind of like who you are. And so we know, because we're all adults, that we have things that we do over and over again, and we don't really change. Our habits are the same unless something critical happens. Generally, we stay the same. And so when it comes to teaching, when you teach, it's very personal and you do the same thing all the time, and changing what you do, it has to be very specific and it needs to be identified.
Right.
And so it's a training thing, and it's a feedback thing. We have to engage and provide feedback when we see that policies aren't being adhered to.
Thank you. Moving along. Facility master plan. Are you leaving us? Thank you. Thank you for coming.
And so I have had the pleasure, today we did a little bit of a road trip, and it was fun because it was Kyle and Ray, and I was driving, and Kyle was in the back of my truck, and he
sounds so excited.
he was squished. He was like, I should have a 4-door truck instead of a, what is it? 2.5. But I tried to explain to him that I've only had another person in my car. I haven't had 3. So anyway, but we had a great time. We went to Lakeview. We went to the mid-school. We went around, talked about grants, talked about pretty much the top from C to G on the agenda. And what we can do is, let's just start with C when we start. But what we're doing is we're really having a conversation on our facilities. And what I really appreciate about these two gentlemen is one, Ray has, he comes with a lot of experience and expertise. He understands the buildings. He was, sending wonderful emails of, leaks of some of our roofs last week, monster monsoon time. So fun time to find leaks. And, so he knows a lot about this facility plan. And I guess Kyle, one thing he's really good at, he's kind of what I call a freshie. So he's brand new still. He hasn't been here every season, but he is a great, he could be a historian from a school perspective, because he has gone back in time and he has found the deed to Lakeview, which was what, 1905? Not that I know, but what I want to do. So one of my goals.
Not that I know, but it's 1905.
Well, he told me and I listened. But one thing I want to do is, I'm so excited about this. And I don't know if I should tell you, but I will, because we're going to put in your files, we're going to put the copy of the deed. The language is so, you have it here? Oh, it's so cool. And I'm so excited about this. So one of our goals is to start creating a historical framework of our buildings, because
Good.
Kyle has had to be the researcher. And there are plenty of people before him, and Ray supplied all the information of Lakeview, but this stuff is like, it's history.
Yes.
And you lose it once, you'll never find it again. And not to say that the county doesn't hold good records. However, we need to hold our own records, and we need to be able to foster a conversation that is based off of our historical framework that paints a story for you so that you can make informed decisions. And so I just want to say that I congratulate these men because they have really spent a lot of time, and you can see how much they care about these buildings. There was a facilities master plan that was developed, I believe, in 2011. And at that time, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because this is a conversation we had a few hours ago. But there were 7 items, I believe, that were recommended by the people who did the facilities plan. And I believe it was the state or the Colorado Department of Education.
So CDE's facility assessment team came through in 2009, and they did each building facility assessment. And then 2011, the district hired an architect firm to create a facility master plan. And a lot of the data they used, they checked off that 2009 data of the state. So kind of double teamed in a couple of years.
And I think, so what Kyle was mentioning is we had these recommendations, but the recommendations that we followed were kind of the Band-Aid options. And so we were talking about how we want to just revisit this 2011 plan because we have the same issues with our buildings because they weren't really addressed. And I don't mean really, and I'm not being critical of the people who made the decisions back then, but we want to look at this and we want to kind of create a space where the 3 of us sit down and talk and we identify what are the concerns, what were they then, do they still exist? And then we will bring that to you as a board to inform you. And then what was our next step? We were going to bring it to administration?
Yes.
Yeah. So why don't you carry on?
Okay, so
Okay.
let me hand this out first. And so what I'm giving you here is
Oh, thank you.
it covers a couple different items that we're going to talk about. The first is I have the facility master plan back on the desk back there that you can see. It's a big binder.
This is the one from 2011?
Yes. So what I've done is I printed off just the recommendation portion, what they came to the conclusion of, different options and how much it would be to do those different options. So there were.
What year was this?
2011. Essentially anywhere in the ballpark from doing nothing to spending $45 million to renovate all the way to replacing every building at $109 million. Essentially, after reviewing it all, and I know we've had discussions about going out to get another facility master plan, I really think a lot of the information that's in this master plan that we have is still relevant and it's still stuff that needs to be fixed. Obviously, the prices and cost estimates are going to be outdated because it was more than 10 years ago, but I think between that and the capital reserve plan that we already have with some identified items, myself, Dr. Vanderway, and Mr. Lopez can sit down, kind of see what immediate needs are going to need to be addressed, and then come back to the board after we go through administration and see what really needs to be done and say, okay, do we need a new facility master plan, or do we have a comprehensive plan to move forward within the district to get some things done and then go out again? Because even in this master plan, they provide a bunch of different funding examples and how you can go out and get the money. And essentially all these are going to be $50 million plus, right? And so we don't have any, not in the near future, are we going to get $50 million out of nowhere. If we go to bond, we can probably max get 50 million, granted everything went our way. Even then, that's only half of what it's going to cost to do a really big, to redo the campuses or to create, centralized campuses is going to be around 100 million. So we're going to have to get a best grant and hope the state can match us on that, even with the bond. So there's lots of steps that we're going to have to follow after the master plan. So I think, as Dr. Vanderway stated, I think we can come up with a comprehensive plan based on what we know is already happening, what we have on our capital reserve plan currently, address that, and move from there without jumping into a facility master plan again and essentially paying $50,000 approximately to have that done again. Most of the information is still valid.
Love that.
So I got, based on the cap reserve plan that we do have and that I presented to you before, if we were to tackle everything that's on the 5-year plan in one shot, it'd be about $3.6 million.
How much?
3.6. And that's with some approximations on asphalt and roof, right? That's us doing our best to project what those costs would be without going out and getting those quotes. I believe if me and Dr. Vanderway and Mr. Lopez sit down, we can come together and have an aggressive plan to tackle that and sooner than 5 years. But we really need to make sure that we stick to the plan. And one of the things that I really wanted to mention after reviewing historically what we've done with our capital reserve money is maybe set aside money for emergencies, but we need to stick to the plan and not let specific interests come to this level and deter us from doing what we need to do to maintain our buildings, because our buildings need to be maintained. And when we have other ideas of how we want to spend this money, it takes away from that. And it's great, but does it serve the whole district well? Because on top of this, we also have another issue called salaries. And that's a whole other beast that's going to cost in the same ballpark. So we got to be really thoughtful about how we're going to tackle these and how we prioritize what we want to do here. So that's kind of where we're at on the facility master.
Well, what about, at one point in time, we had at least some informal discussions about replacing the 3 inner city schools with a combined school, basically on the basis that it would cost less money, it would provide opportunities for teachers to interact more effectively than they can now. And we could certainly save in utilities. Is that still on the table somewhere?
So actually, it's what I read from the facility master plan is that was actually one of the recommendations.
Option,
That was a 3-part recommendation.
Option 2,
The first 2 parts of that were the elementary pieces, but the last piece of that was the high school. And the cost was going to be about 60 million. And at that time, our capacity to bond was under 60 million. So even if we went out and bonded the capacity, we wouldn't have enough money to do it. I'm not sure what the decision-making process was after that. I know we went out to bond for the high school, and that was, of that recommendation, that's the only piece that I'm aware of that we moved forward with. And it may have been a funding issue at that time. I mean, it was in a time where the economy was still kind of bumpy. So I don't know what exactly the thought process was, but I think that was the intent, but they're like, well, we can do this piece of that recommendation with hopes. Their hopes was if we build a high school, essentially every kid could get a piece of it eventually if they go to the high school, so they can see, they'll be able to get some kind of benefit from it. Again, I'm assuming that was 10 years ago and I wasn't in the room, so.
I like the idea of putting, consolidating, moving to 2 schools. I've talked to Risha and we've talked about it. So I think that our next work session, that we should discuss that, because we've got to do something about monopoly. It's going to cost us a bunch of money. And I don't think that we want to invest in something that's not.
Well, in some of these, it's, as you well know, it's just hard to get technology in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've
Brick and
got
mortar.
Kemper and we've got Mesa. They're both, please tell me they're adequate.
What's that again?
Kemper and Mesa.
You know, as far as the building itself,
Yes.
structurally, we may have issues later on due to the fact that we have old pipes in there that are original built in
Metal.
the 50s. So they have never been removed or restored. And we still use a boiler system. So if it was to ever break, we have an issue. I mean, it's gonna flood. So Mesa, same thing.
Possibly what we need to do then is to, at our next work session, take this all into consideration. Can you give us the information by then?
There's structural reports in that 2011 that I made copies for and give you, and it says exactly. what Mr.
Yeah,
Lopez
because like
stated.
what it's saying too, and they're technically what that book is almost saying is some of these buildings might require 4 to 5 million to restore them. But is it worth putting that dollar amount into a building that's been there for 50, 60, 70 years.
And that's it.
The lang-
Oh,
Band-aids put on.
Right.
yeah, we're doing
Right.
Band-Aids again.
The language says, and then it says, continuing to patch these problems without a comprehensive roadmap will lead to continuation of investing money in failing facilities with no long-term benefit.
Right.
That was the conclusion of that.
What's our choices? And this is something that we need to discuss.
Well, and so
The next one is.
What I provided is a 7 choice, different kind of ideas to kind of get us, thinking of different ways to go.
Yeah, so we need to study this for our next.
And what we can do too, if I might add, is when we get together, we're gonna read and identify what our recommendations might be and give you several scenarios.
Good.
But, as you can see, Ray's folks do an amazing job with our
They do.
campuses. I mean, our campuses are beautiful. Like today we were walking around one of the campuses over at the mid school and we were in the, by the tennis courts and it's just amazing there. Like, it's so beautiful. You see the flowers, you see the orchards, you see and the exterior of the buildings, they were so eloquent in pointing out, the spaces that we might not necessarily, Risha, go down that alley. Let me show you something. It's like, okay. But I mean, it's great because that's what I need to see and that's what I need to know. I can't change anything and I can't make recommendations from here. Well, I could, but that's not the way I roll.
It wouldn't be adequate, though.
And these gentlemen, though, I mean, what Ray has done is, so I've worked in a lot of old schools like this. This is not new to many districts. There were many schools within the Southwest that were built around the 50s. Like if you think about just immigration and the building of our great states, they're old buildings. But one thing I can say is you can go to a lot of places that were built this time and they don't look quite so beautiful.
Yeah.
And so they've done a phenomenal job. And, but we also have a duty to make sure that we're not adding to things that are falling apart. And, it's hard when you have flat top roofs and you're trying to fix a leak.
Right.
That is, you need a whole roof replacement. And, Ray was going to make some estimates at some point based off of old, what's the term I'm looking for? Bids.
Yeah, all the bids.
Or RFPs, but the deal is if we're gonna do it, we might as well do it right. And I'm not saying we can afford that because we have not dug into this, and I'm not saying doing it right means building new, but I think we need to get creative. And once we come up with our recommendation, we're gonna bring it to you guys to think through the process. We will then bring it to our administration. And regardless of what the outcomes are, then we take it to our community and get feedback, because there may have to be some changes made. And the changes might not be as easy as we would like. But I think it's important that we address the facilities plan.
I do too.
Because, and as to what Kyle was saying is, you always have to have a reserve for emergencies and you always have to have a reserve for what happens when. But when you have a clear plan on what you're going to do to fix your house, then you get all those things done. And this is our house for, many, many children, and they deserve a place that's adequately fixed up for them, as well as our community members that come and spend time with us as well.
Just one thing to add to that, the power to all these buildings is getting real scarce. I mean, it's not, the buildings can't handle anymore due to the fact that we can't add additional breakers because they're maxed out.
But we discussed that when we were putting in the air conditioner
Correct.
on all of that.
Yeah,
And
transfer.
We knew that we were pushing it.
Yeah,
You guys were here and we were talking about it.
so they're already maxed out, and especially this building, the more electronics we put in it, it's hard to find power.
There's a multifaceted benefit to consolidation.
Whereas,
From teachers to technology.
Transportation.
To
Transportation, to maintenance, to student body cohesiveness, because they're gonna grow up together, go to middle school together, they're not coming from multiple schools.
I like that.
Transportation.
Yeah, we can't forget transportation. So if you guys can do this at our next work session, I would appreciate it. Okay.
Hired.
Yeah. That's what you guys want me to say, isn't it? Give you more work. But I don't know where to start from this, so I need guidance, and I think that the whole board would need some. Chris maybe doesn't need as much guidance as the rest of us does.
I have a
He's
great
into
idea, but it's just an idea and everybody has one.
Oh, go ahead and share.
I think we have a lot of properties in city limits and even one in the county. So I think we can come up with a plan that includes support from city administration and county as far as doing some type of what's good for you is good for me. Like we get rid of a lot of these properties that the city has no tax benefit to, has no commerce benefit to. It's might as well be black on Google Maps because it's worthless.
Right.
So if you can come up with something where we can allocate land just outside of city limits where we can build a consolidated campus and they take on some of that cost of purchasing that land, and then we deed them the land that these buildings sit on, and they can sell it, they can get revenue, they can start bringing commerce in, they can whatever they want. They can actually realize some benefit to the property as it sits now. There's a lot of and for Ray and maintenance, you go from how many buildings do we have now?
Go to this.
11 or 12. I mean, so you'd basically have a high school, middle school, and then you'd have everything at the consolidated campus. With enough land.
So you'd say
future,
keep the elementary, the admin building at the consolidated campus.
and the bus barn,
The bus barn.
and then have enough land there so when when the middle school ages out, that gets built there. So everything
Right.
comes, and now you have a student body and a community that goes one place, they have one direction. I think it's technology that builds into there, the cost savings of just your infrastructure.
Did you talk to Kyle about this earlier? Because you spoke, you talked to me, I'm going, if only we had the money. So this is something to pursue.
That's the money. And I think if we can get that type of leadership buy-in from the city council and even parts of the county commission, then it would be more receptive at the ballot. Because it's not just about what we need, it's also about, hey, look, we have all these chips that you can benefit from too.
Sure.
So.
And so what we will do is, when we met today, I discussed that we're going to have a meeting next week. And then as we move forward, I'm still reaching out to the city and the county. I haven't been introduced, but I will. And, I know you all know this, but I really believe in strong partnerships with city and county. And, because my families live there and I am vetted to be a voice if I can be, or just to sit and listen to what's going on locally and, what the county's dealing with and what the city's doing. So I think we have a lot of opportunities to build on that, but I want to make sure that we have a solid story to say before I address that piece to the city and the county, because we want to be extremely professional and know everything. And so I'm really excited about that because we have there's a lot of different ways we can approach things. And I think the challenge with this is, I know that Lakeview is our next topic, but we were at Lakeview today and, I think, was it Kyle, was it you or was it Ray that brought up that the last time, I think it was you, Ray, the last time he was there, or not the last time, but a time that he was there, a gentleman popped in who was about my age. And he was like, I went to school here. And so when we talk about consolidation, we really have to engage the community because this is a really emotional thing. When you talk about closing down a building that someone raised generations of families in, it gets really emotional real quick. And we really need to make sure that we are extremely communicative, that we allow, that we have, town halls or whatever we want to call it, that we bring people to the sites, that we show them things hands-on. Sometimes I think we're very boardroom, we're here, but people can't see really like what's happening with the brick and mortar and what's happening with crumbling facilities and, holes in ceilings. And that's only in one place, not everywhere, just so you know, everyone's safe. But but seriously, to paint an honest picture and to let people know this is really what we're dealing with, because the idea of electricity is massive. The idea of our kids do not have the adequate technology because we can't build, these types of buildings might have had a purpose, but they were not built for technology.
No.
And so, bandwidth is huge these days, especially with the COVID and kids having more online interaction. So I think, we will listen to your recommendation. I think it's a great one. And I think any way that we think outside the box, even though it might cause some hesitation from our community, I think we do service to look under every crevice and think of any idea in thinking of, what is Cortez going to look like in 20 years? Because what we build today will be here in 20 years. And, these kids that we're teaching, we will have their grandbabies, or their babies, hopefully. Anyway, but I won't be hopeful about what generation it is, but it's, I think, it's an opportunity to be innovative, and we owe it to you to make educated, voice. And it's important to just engage the community as well, because this will, regardless which way we go, it's a big hurdle.
I was
Just letting you know, when I was teaching, and that's when they remodeled the middle school, and the school board brought parents in and had their meetings there in the gym and walked them around so that they could see why we were needing a bill, why we needed to add on. So, and it worked. So, taking parents around, letting them see. I mean, I'm just sitting here looking at the cracks and stuff in here and so it's be prepared for whatever.
I was at Beach Street today for quite a while, and I don't know if the board's gone in there since all of the work you put in motion has happened. It's absolutely beautiful, Ray. You guys, it's beautiful.
It's been
And
4 years.
we've gone from 144 in preschool, we're at 68 now. A lot of it was due to COVID, but it's time to market and rebuild that. But boy, go see the fruits of your work there, because it's the nicest preschool in Montezuma County, hands down.
So where would this leave our rural schools?
We would want to remain, we need to keep those kids.
And not, and especially if we're gonna be expanding, I'm just saying, like.
I think
Properties are selling.
Yeah,
That's so much of our generation. history.
yes. People are very protective of the rural schools.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I think you would have to like combine Pleasant and Lewis together.
But I'm even thinking
that is a
Put your
consideration.
own modular, like a small outpost of buses there, so you can like 2 or 3 full-size buses, so that they're dedicated to that route and they're not coming into town. And
Even that's gonna be touchy. I mean.
Yeah, it will be. Let's not cross that bridge till we get
no,
there.
no, I'm.
Okay, so, if you'll come back at our next work session, which will be the first Tuesday in September.
The 7th. So did we decide what we might think about doing with Lakeview?
Well, that's the next item.
Discussion.
Oh,
Right, that's the next one.
So,
Oh, okay.
okay, Ray,
Ready?
Ray, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna read this from here because this was quite the research. So, okay, in 1905, J.H. McCracken executed a quitclaim deed to the school district, which conveyed the property we know as Lakeview to the school district. Within the deed language was a clause that stated, should the tract of land or any part thereof at the time be abandoned for public school purposes for a period of a year or longer, it shall immediately revert to and become property of the party of the first part, heirs or assigns. So based on my review of the legal opinions given to the district between the timeframe of 2002 and 2011, there were inquiries from community and nearby landowners as to how the building was being used for school purposes. Below are the options according to legal opinion given by the district general counsel in August of 2011 on what we can do with the building as a school district. One, we can continue using the building in a way that contributes to the school district function, also known as storage, having teacher meetings, seminars, having field trips, or other uses that support district goals. So as long as we're using it in any of those capacities, we're within our rights of the deed. We could transfer by way of sale or lease, but we could only do this knowing that the subsequent owner or leaser would be subject to the same limitation that the property must be used for school district purposes. So if we lease it or sell it, whoever that person would be would have to be understanding they would have to operate it. It would have to be used for school purposes. So it's really hard to expect that. Maybe a lease, but I don't know about a sell. The other option, locate current McCracken heirs who have the rights to the property and ask them to execute a waiver of release. We would give up their rights to the title so that the property would be owned by the district 100%, or the district can quit claim the property interest to the McCracken heirs and divest the district of ownership of the property. That's essentially our options of what we can do with Lakeview. And so that's in general terms. It gets a little bit more tricky when we're talking about the heirs and the property, because in 2009, an easement was placed to the property by another family. And so that's where I'm a little unclear on if we said, okay, we're going to abandon and give it back to the McCracken family because that easement was put on by another party. I don't know how that works. I don't know if it all goes back to
They
McCracken.
went back to the McCrackens and they okayed it.
Okay.
I was on the
Okay.
board then.
So that's essentially where we're at. And so this is me summarizing legal opinions from our general counsel. So this is by no,
1 second.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I just was reiterating the board's approval to do that because I was an employee of the district and I had to go investigate why that particular family was putting that easement out there without our permission.
right.
Right, they were hitting trees and everything else. And so we had to go back to the McCracken heirs.
County was contacting us and saying, what are you doing? You're not doing. I'm like, we're not doing anything. So.
Yeah.
So there's actually
I
fax
know.
documentation with your name on it in this. I mean,
Here you go, Tammy.
thank the heavens Ray took all this and kept it, because some of the information here, I don't know if anybody has it. So I have copies of all the deeds, all the way going back to 1895, maps, different
Wow.
legal things. So it's all here if you ever want to come look at it.
And we're gonna scan this information and we're gonna keep the paper, but then the goal, the verbal goal that we were thinking about today. So we'll see when this comes through, but we want to scan all these documents and create an electronic file. Because one thing we want to do is we want to start getting all this historical stuff, because that's what we brought up. It's like to find this stuff, it's so important. And we need to do our due diligence to the work that's been done, back in 1905, that's huge. And so I think we're going to scan it and create files like a facilities master plan, like file. And then in that, it'll be like, let's just say, Lakeview school property, MCMS carpet need, just go down through schools so that we start creating this framework so that when, Kyle retires when he's 72 from here.
He told me 86.
Oh, okay, that's better. But then when he leaves, there's this historical story and map that people don't have to search for. Because I can't imagine how many people have searched for this information time and time again. So that's one of our.
He has to. So, okay.
So the building has to stay there? Or can we, just the property and, as long as we're using it for something, I was just thinking about some kind of teacher housing.
The problem is, and we talked about that earlier, is because of the asbestos in the building, it'd almost be cheaper to buy a piece of property and put houses on it, because you were gonna pay 4 times as much to abate it.
I'm pretty sure it tested positive on it.
I'm pretty sure it would.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah, probably.
And we walked through, and one of the things that we discussed is the place needs to be cleaned down. So even as we sit and discuss, we have a duty to organize that building and get it ready for whatever we want to use it for, whether we're collapsing it, whether we're giving it back to the people who gave it to us, you know, to give and to receive, so to speak, or, you know, the cost of fixing the roof alone. You know, do we really want to invest in something for a storage unit? Like right now, I mean, we walk through, it's an adorable little place. I love the big trees, you know, it's really cute out there. However, it also has, we're going to have the guys work on it when they get chances. It's not a top priority, but we also need to clean our house before we get rid of it. And so there are things that we need to have conversations with admin. Why do you need this, and is it really applicable? You know, we have desks in there that are for testing. Is that
Do we need it?
necessary, or can we look at a different way? But we're going to clean it out, and we're going to make some recommendations to you all. But we think there have been, sorry, Tammy, there have been a lot of conversations, and we kind of want to create an action plan for this building.
thank you.
And so that, you know, we accomplish something, because there have been a lot of conversations over time that just kind of fizzled out. And I think it's because they're tough conversations, and that's okay, but we need to, this is the time when we're talking about facilities, you know, this is the time that we organize.
So I was just gonna, just to back what you were saying. At the time with Lakeview, of where it is and where it's come from, and how we're using it now, there was many facets back in 2011. One of which is our food department, food services. I was like, I lost the name. But now they're in a much larger facility.
And have storage.
And they have the storage, where it was before on the Calkins property, we didn't have the storage for the testing materials or the testings. But in order to keep Lakeview, as we read in the deed, it had to be used for school usage and storage. That was when it tagged the administration back in 2011 was, hey, we are using it for school purposes, storing student testing desks or whatever, because we didn't have the ample storage. So, and I'm appreciative of the conversation with our facilities, because as Ray knows, we've all been to the tops of them and down into the depths of them to know the shape that they're in.
Yeah.
And if we are going to, as a board, vote to send it back to McCracken here, we need to exactly clean house and return it in such a way, if not better. At least that's what I told our kids. If you're gonna return something, it returns in a better shape than once you received it.
Ray, how long's it been since anybody's been out there to get testing desks or anything?
We just use it more as a storage. We did open it one time for some reason.
Back in.
Yeah, back in, I don't know what year it was.
So it's been many years since we've been taking anything out of it.
Yeah, well, we
That's-
still take stuff in and out of it.
Oh, do
It's
you?
kind of our mini, like our maintenance storage kind of.
Oh,
We use a lot of stuff that we restored from the old high school. We took it there just in case if we
is
had.
that where the bicycles went?
I'm not sure where the bicycle went. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Last time I saw them, they were in the auxiliary gym.
I think the bicycles actually got donated to Cocapelli's. They take them back.
I think so. They were pretty damaged.
They were pretty, they looked tough when I was walking through.
I think they restored them or took them back there.
So I think that to close this up, we need to say, start cleaning it.
Okay.
And then bring it back to us, and we'll determine if we're going to give it back or use it for something.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Because right now the maintenance on it's actually haven't really done anything with the
Right.
rail fencing, the cedar fence. It's already deteriorating.
Yeah. Yeah, I drove by.
It's gonna need to be replaced soon.
So we need to clean it up, and then we can make a decision.
Okay.
Is that agreeable with the board? Okay, great. Moving right along to the middle school carpet. Tammy brought that up.
I did, I brought that up as to the fact that we were talking about the new high school
Great.
carpet and the it was covered under warranty. We're now, you know, at that tail end, and we were also mentioning, and just before even that, so my mind that evening was, if we're going to make sure that in 5 years, these classrooms at the high schools carpet, that integrity isn't there, yet middle school's carpet that's been there since the remodel, and we all made the determination.
That was my
age and where
pen,
he's at with that, and where it is now landing in the cap reserves. I'm just asking for the board's leniency of, I know it's fiscal year 2022, this is fiscal year 20.
That's this year.
Is this
So
just-
it's on-
oh, that's right. Sorry,
It's on this
right.
year's cap reserve to do.
So, I mean, I'm really knocking myself for not bringing this much farther, because these same carpet needs were issues when I was an employee in the district, in the maintenance area. And yet, but we are now with the funds capability. I'm just saying we just need to get it done.
Yeah,
I
Get it
agree.
off our list.
Get it off the list. do
Yes,
it.
let's check,
There's
let's
such
do a check mark,
huge
yeah.
Safety issue there, and if we just go, you know, we talk about lawsuits. I don't want a lawsuit because we were negligent, and SIDSIP, which is our property line insurance company, liability insurance, will say that we're liable. They won't pay for that lawsuit because we knew about it. I've made mention, now everybody sitting at the table knows about it. They mention it at other, you know, it's out there. We're liable.
So it's going to be fixed this year, correct?
I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to sit down, as we discussed on the facility master plan, and look at everything and see, because it is on the plan to do this year, so I would assume. But to your point, we could say that about 3 different schools.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's the thing, is like, we need to really prioritize and say, we have a plan to fix all of it so that we're not opening our liability up somewhere else. So
Okay.
one thing with the middle school, you know, we did the classrooms, 3 years ago? Probably 90% of them, because the other 10% were already done, probably within 10 years, I think. So the hallways never got hit.
The hallway's the only thing that.
The library?
in the library.
The library, oh, the library's bad.
And at the time, looking at it, the ripples in the carpet weren't as bad in the library, but then the last couple of years, it really gotten real bad. So the library definitely needs to be replaced.
And I can tell you, that was one of the first things he pointed out when I got here. We did a whole tour, and the 2 biggest things was the carpet at the middle school and the carpet at Manah are both
Yeah, Manaz looked real
are
bad.
in horrible shape, so.
So they'll come up with
That'll be coming,
the
yep,
master
and
facility.
it won't be
It'll all be, I think we'll have C through G, at least on this agenda, addressed, because it'll just be all the.
So that's taken care of Mesa Roof then. They'll come back on the master facility.
Well, I've got some stuff, you know, Liz asked me to come up with some costs.
Sorry, Ray.
It was like short.
Well, I asked you for your phone number, so the next time I get a phone call,
Oh, yeah.
you haven't
He's
given
like,
it.
oh,
You haven't given it to me.
yeah.
Yeah, you just said, later.
Hesitated.
I had.
So this is kind of just a layout of what the
Thank you.
roof looks like on the top end right now. And what you're gonna see is basically the years that they were done and the warranty, if we have any, is showing what year they expired. So Mesa has always been a concern for the roof, and Tammy would probably go through the same, saying that it's always been on the list for a while. And according to the master plan, that was one of the main ones that they looked at after reviewing it, saying that was needed. That was one of the concerns.
Well, that alone tells you how old it is.
Yeah.
1990, it expires in 1999. So a green check mark, does that mean it's been done? Or-
Actually, the green check mark is basically, if you look on the little, on the bottom right-hand corner, it's asbestos free.
Okay.
Everything's been tested on the roofs at all the facilities. So this roof, what we've done is actually Deb, my secretary, she kind of handles the asbestos side of the world for the district, I guess you can say. So whenever testing needs to be taking place, or she just makes sure that the books are up to date. So this is our roofing book that we go off of, and we have an actual file for the roofs itself with the warranties and anything that's been done to the roof. So what you'll notice on the blue, those are the repairs that were done on the south, where the WW roofing is. That repair was done in 2019, and that's the roof that actually is going to be replaced. It's Herrick's or Top Line's going to be doing it here soon.
It's the one we just recently, the board approved.
That one's been approved. And then highlighted in yellow, that was done, of course, back in 2002. It only comes with a 10-year warranty. So that, of course, has already expired. So now we're exceeded the warranty side of it to where the problem with the now is that it's starting to show separation and it's bad. So if you see the orange, it'd be on the south end again where it says TL Roofing EPDM 2020. They did that last year because what happened on there, about 150-foot section started pulling away from the edging. So it started leaking into the classroom. So, and they also did it on the north end and kind of right there by the gym was one thing, one bid. So basically what it all amounts to, the next page is kind of went through some previous bids that we received from 2 different companies and kind of broke them down from Top Line installers to TL Roofing. So basically the first one's going to be the Mesa Ballast classroom. That's the one that's going to get done as soon as Top Line gets the materials in. And I think the start date might be in September. So it's getting real close. But the problem with the whole thing now is materials are really hard to come by. So, and from what I was,
And they're expensive.
yeah, and from what I was told is the ISO, one of the plants burned down a while back. So that didn't help at all. So they're kind of backed up. Actually, we're getting some stuff now in August that they're going to finish the Calkins building, that they are doing the renovation on that. So Top Line got that bid. But anyways, so that Mesa, the 1995 or 1985 was going to be redone. But then what I've done is kind of went through stuff that we've done with other roofing companies and kind of the one of them is going to be like our annexes, our shop, that roof got done. So basically Top Line's estimate come in at, 97,000. So I just broke it down by square foot at this time because we didn't have time to actually reach out to get actual bids from companies without actually running an RFP. So this is kind of really a generic, but it's probably pretty close on what they're going to charge if it comes down to it. And always add 20%. So just figure 20% on top of what's here.
So it's his guesstimate is what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
So
So expect more.
he's still waiting, but we just wanted to give you a rough.
Idea of what
Yeah.
the cost is going to be. So I'm just going off square foot. So basically the shop, Top Line and TL, you can see the tremendous difference in the cost for the 82,000 or 8,200 square feet. So what we did is an average. So we just added the 2 and divided by 2. So we think it's going to run approximately $10 a square foot to replace that roof or for that one. But anyways, this is kind of an example of how I did it. But at the very bottom on Mesa roof cost estimate, this is going to be for everything else minus the ballast end on this roof. So we figured it was going to be 37,791 square feet. So what we did is the remaining roof to replace, the 37,000 at $10.50 a square foot would be about 397,000. And what that is based off of is, the original, the ISO, the EPDM membrane that's on there now is pretty much probably deteriorating over so many years. Because what they normally do on roofing that I've noticed is they won't take it all the way down to the decking. What they do is they kind of just put a Band-Aid on it. They'll leave the original ISO down, add 2, and then put the membrane on the top. So what the code states is that we have to, commercial buildings, schools have to hold an R38 value insulation on the roofs. So what's happened on this, I think the value right now is only sitting at about maybe R20 to maybe an R25, 22. So what we're doing anymore is going all the way down to the decking to try to build everything from there back up to where it needs to be. for the R value.
Makes it much more expensive,
Yeah, so,
but very much better.
and, they always look at the ISO as part of being part of the insulation side of it, and also the bore that they put down, which is a 1/2 inch thick. That's considered insulation. So they average all that up to get their R38. And then normally what we've been going back in is with the TPO membrane, which is a white membrane. So Mesa on that ballasted roof, which is the gravel, would be a TPO. And on that one, it's going all the way back down to the decking as well. So they're taking it all the way down to the decking and then building it back up. And the only reason being is on that is also the state permit is requiring us to do it that way. And on the permitting side, what's happening is the city we used to pull permits from the city to kind of do the commercial stuff. And, but they pulled out, they're not going to do commercial buildings anymore, especially for schools. So we have to go through the state. And the waiting time on that is probably, depending on if we have our ducks in a row, could take about 6 weeks. So the time on it is what we got to really watch for. But what we're going to start doing on an RFP is having the contractor pull the permit, since they would have a better time on their start dates, instead of us pulling it and have them have more responsibility with it. Because what it amounts to is the last 2 that we pulled, we have to sign off on it. We have to call them, but it's better for probably the contractor to call when they need to be inspected. Because especially roofs, they got to come all the way down from Pueblo just to look at the roof, unless they indicate, okay, you take pictures halfway through, let us know, then finish it off, because they want to see if everything's being done correctly on that side, the state side. So anyways, I guess the proposal would be is just like looking at trying to get some of these roofs done. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this one's been on since 2011 on that master plan.
So you want us to put it on as an action item at our next board meeting?
If
So-
it's up to,
So what, on the current facility master plan, we have that portion of the roof, I believe, scheduled for next year. And it was brought to our attention that it's kind of an emergency.
yeah, it's been, late, and I
Status.
think
So
we've been doing some patchwork on it here these last storms. We don't really know until we get a storm, pretty much. But what the guys have been doing for the last year and a half, we're doing quarterly evaluations on the roofs. So they're going up on every roof and documenting what's going on. And I'm trusting what they're saying, because we have to go by what they see, because they see them daily. And the separations, what's happening to the roof is real critical on going with that. Because what it all amounts to is the insurance claim side of it.
Right.
Because if we're not going to fix the problem, they might not repair the problem. So
They won't.
it's just a little thing that we have to do our side to kind of manage it and make sure we get them done before the warranty runs out or shortly after.
So do you think quarterly it's too much of a time span in between? Couldn't they go up there monthly and check
Well, and it's getting real.
your drains that all get trapped, and if they're not up there monthly, they're happening quarterly, and we're having a monsoon season, those drains, even on our new high school being up there, even
Yeah,
those drains aren't being cleaned, and you're relying on them for quarterly. Maybe you want to do maintenance monthly on that.
Yeah, and it
While
might
they're
have
up
to-
there, they can inspect where everything's looking.
Yeah, 'cause we did the
Still attached to
quarterly.
flash and all that.
yeah. Because what's happened now is middle school is going to be the next big ticket item. Because I think I want to say back in 2001, we had a major hailstorm.
yeah, we do.
And it damaged that roof, so it went to an insurance claim. But all they did is they kept the original membrane down, but they glued the new stuff on the top for the insurance. So that only carried, I think, 10 to 15 years. But what's happening is the membrane that below is shrinking so much that it's pulling the EPDM on the top. Because the one below is a PVC and the one on top is EPDM, and they don't work together.
And I think, to add to what they're saying, I think this is where we really need to come together and look at the current facilities master plan and look at, the money, the moving parts. And then this is where we come to you with a recommendation of what's next, because we could easily say, yeah, let's do that roof. But I haven't looked at, the middle school's roof. And, I think we need to foster a conversation, look at what, people built that plan with, they knew what they were doing. And so I think we have to honor the work that was put in there, but then look at what our current status is in order to come up with a solid recommendation. And then it's your guys' decision on whether, or the board, sorry, don't mean to be, but to decide what you would like us to do and provide us with your input, because I think we need to make an informed recommendation to you based off of, Band-Aids. And, we understand that's where it's been. And as I said earlier, this is not a unique situation to other school districts.
Right.
Public education has not been adequately funded for many years, but we need to also look at opportunities for the best grants and places where we can find opportunities to do what's best for, it's kind of like what I was saying with a 20-year plan. What do we want, what decisions are we going to make today for our kids 20 years down the line? Because the people who are running this district then, which will probably be all of us, they're going to see what we did, and we want to lead them, a best foot forward, because our kids are in these buildings,
You can only manage an asset to a certain point before it becomes a liability.
Right.
So,
Has a life expectancy, and after that, it's.
And
so
due
when can
to
we expect the
his,
recommendation?
I think when we meet tomorrow, we'll give you a solid answer. I would be hoping we would have a recommendation by the next work session,
The next work session, okay.
which is next month.
Right.
And if that changes, we will let you know when we meet next week. But I think it's important to start moving forward, because
I do too.
winter's coming.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have lots of snow.
It might be something to entertain the thought of maybe contracting with an engineer and architect firm to do a master plan, because in their process of master planning, they, of course, they have civil engineers and electrical engineers that go through the buildings and make solid recommendations that they have to stand by in the event of an emergency or something. But they also engage the community and have different community forums and staff forums and school forums for you. So, and you could participate in them, but it doesn't take the collective time of the immediate staff doing their job. And when they give you 2 or 3 or 4 options, they stand by them. So, Ray can tell us, I think the roof is splitting and we might need to fix it, but they will tell you this is why, and this is the weight load, and this is, and so you're getting, we have great guys, but when it comes push to shove, they're not going to put their life on $150,000 or $500,000 decisions. So I'm just saying it might behoove us to think about going to an outside firm that do that for their business and do it for school districts all the time. There's certain ones that work just for school districts, right? You agree, or?
Yeah, because, we just evaluate all we can do, looking at it, by what
So-
past experience.
So that would put this master plan away.
It's 10 years old.
Yeah, but I think it's a great place to start, because we did all that work and there's surveys from the community and all that stuff. And I don't know if anything was ever done. So I think we start
I'm
here
gonna
with
say
this
that
information and then come back after we either determine that we can do a plan here before doing that, or we're going to have to go and get another one because it's 10 years old. But I think we can start by reviewing what we have.
Okay, so at the next work session, we'll have a solid plan on.
Yeah.
And we'll have a recommendation based off of the meeting that we have
So,
next week.
okay. I'm looking forward to that. I love to talk about construction and roads and asbestos.
That's business.
If I don't hear that word again, I might cry.
Okay, Manal Playground.
All right.
So again, just to refresh everyone, in 2019, the school district and the county went into an agreement that allowed the county to be a recipient of a state grant on behalf of Manaw Elementary. The grant award was for $110,000 to replace the playground facilities. This $110,000 grant was line item budgeted for approximate costs at that time. This grant's also based on reimbursable costs, meaning that we pay upfront and get reimbursed once the expense project is completed. So I brought this to you guys a couple months ago, and we wanted to move forward based on that. So we went out, the first step of this project was to get an architectural design. The grant estimated that this cost would be $10,000, so that's what they line item budgeted for it. The only quote we could get back for design cost was $36,770. So essentially, $26,000 more than the grant had budgeted for this expense. So I will be bringing a capital reserve request to the board for essentially $185,000, and that is $110,000 that we signed up for the grant reimbursable. But I mean, just based on $26,000 on the design, I can almost safely assume that there's probably another $50,000 that they're going to be unforeseen costs to get this done. And if not, then great, we don't have to spend it all. But I need to bring the capital reserve request to the board, and they need to vote on whether we want to move forward or if we don't. Because if not, I need to let the grantor know that we are not moving forward with this money, because it's sitting waiting to be done, and the project end date has to be by March 13th, or we have to be in process and I have to give them an update of when it would be done.
So we know that Manaw is in really, really bad shape. Well, if we did the playground and then decide to consolidate schools, Manaw would not be one that would consolidate with because of its size and its deterioration. So what would we do with the playground?
So that's part of the discussion we would have to have with the county, because from my understanding, the playground would be built in a way to where we would have some kind of responsibility over the maintenance. So the district would have to figure out what we'd want to do with that. But essentially, because the grant's going through the county, we may be able to have conversations with the city or someone and be like, look, there's no park in this part of the city. And so just make this a city park. There's different ways to go around so we don't have to demolish it.
Because you can't move playground.
No, you can't.
But
That was the whole point.
Again,
Right.
and so in that packet, I provided you the Manaw breakdown of the capital reserve of everything there, so you can see kind of some costs.
And I think that's one conversation we need to have, because the challenges, and this is a conversation we had today, we didn't really spend that much time together, but we had so much fun, at least I did, talking. And, one thing that we're gonna look at is, being underfunded as a public school entity, there are times that people run for grants. And we want to make sure that we're going for the grants that really align with our UIP, and sometimes we get grants, and I'm not saying specifically this one, but sometimes we get grants that it's great to get the money, but then we have to back up that money with a commitment. And right now, are we really ready for a commitment when we're looking at our facilities? And so sometimes I think I need to be better at communicating as we move forward, that we are a unified school district under this umbrella, and we will look at grants, but we'll have a process for vetting grants. Because what has happened with Kyle is he has had to, in a sense, he gets a grant, but then he essentially is doing all this research on what we need to do to adhere to the grant's requirements, where we should know that up front, and we should pitch that to you up front.
Yeah, I
prior.
like to know sustainability.
So, there is a way in which we can do it where, because sometimes grants, they're wonderful, but for the amount that you get and for what we have to do, sometimes it steers us this way, or it steers us that way, and it takes us away from what Ray might want to be doing, or, there's additional things that sometimes I don't think we consider when we're all excited about a grant. And so that's one thing that we're gonna look at, and it's part of this process, right? Like if some people are talking about, are we gonna, tear down a building, or are we gonna consolidate, or, it's hard to buy new equipment, where now we have to make a relationship with the city or the county and like maintenance, and because now we've created this thing of a playground that we are required to maintain. So this conversation and these conversations that we've had today have really identified great areas that we can work to solidify some of the decisions we make in the future.
So I would say.
Is that fair?
Put this on hold until we know exactly what we're doing with our facilities.
Kyle, was that, to my remembering, this was a GOCO grant?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I vaguely remember this discussion as I was administrator at the time, but there was a component of that would require this to be a public space.
Exactly.
So whether we're there or not, it would need to be maintained as a park.
Right. And that's our responsibility.
Yeah.
So is that all right with you guys to, figure out what we're doing with our facility?
I can-
And then decide what.
Yeah, 'cause that was my first question.
As long as I can.
It was like, oh.
So Chris,
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Spend the money.
it is important to those children, is the current playground an asset or liability? Is it a benefit to those children, or is it a detriment to them? And whether we consolidate the schools or not, it's almost. I mean, I'm fine with on and off, but if it's something that needs to be done for the betterment of the children, then we should continue.
absolutely.
Right.
So,
Beautification of the parks in that area.
yeah, there are not any parks that I know.
No,
saying
I mean, but they're eventually at the old high school, isn't there supposed to be a park area there for
But
that?
that's 3 or 4 blocks away for school kids.
It's still not there.
Yeah.
That's what she's saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you'll bring it back to us, because I agree with Chris, we need to think of the good of the kids right now. But we need to think about future too.
Well, and I don't want to
Go right ahead.
elaborate on this too much, but I don't wonder, having gone through the Louis Areola middle school playground, we had the benefit of strong community interest that really supported that project. I'm wondering that if this isn't something that we want for the betterment of the students, that we look beyond this GOCO grant and perhaps reach for something different, like through the Colorado Health Organization that sponsored the one for Lewis and the middle school, which is their requirements were much less stringent than something that we would see through GOCO or something of that nature. So it might be in our best interest to look broader than just this one particular grant.
Yeah.
And
So let's wait till we get our facility and then determine what we're going to do. Is
Where
that
it's at.
good with you?
Just out of curiosity, because looking at the grant that Louis Areola got to, and how big that was and what it was gonna get both facilities. In the end, it's gonna cost, say we did go with this, because we're gonna get 110 reimbursed back to us. So we're putting in $75,000.
I'm assuming that because.
Roughly.
Yeah.
What is that gonna buy? As far as like when you look at like the $700,000 or something, that the other grant.
Right.
And that supplied two schools.
Right.
So I'm just looking at, okay, split that in half, 350,
Well,
what's 100
yeah, I mean, I think
what are they really
by the
gonna
time you
get
get
out of
done with
that?
the engineering and then demolition, I would imagine that 100,000 is gonna be pretty much gone.
So basically we were furnishing the money for the playground equipment and the rest of it's going to the.
I wrote
Beforehand
down,
work.
I mean, looking at what they proposed, I don't even think there's any playground equipment on there. It's more like a track.
It's more like, it's more like an open
track with a
space.
basketball court.
Because there's a lot of asphalt back there right now. There's just.
And that means a lot of skinned up knees.
Yeah, and it has to be ADA approved, so that's why we have to get the architect engineer involved to, you know, how monotonous slope, it may be too much, they have to get that, I think it's 3% grade.
That's
So they have to build up or take down.
All right, so we'll have you bring that back to us with the master
I
plan.
mean, just a little off topic, I see where they've started the middle school demolition for the playground too.
And the state's working on putting in the intersection.
Yeah, I saw that the other day. BOE, venue update.
So I think that what we kind of decided was to update this room.
Mhm.
So what I was gonna do is have a capital reserve request for essentially $5,000 and have Mark and Chris involved and say, what do we want to do to make this room better? I don't know if you guys have a better idea of what you want, because my idea would be, instead of going out on specific items and saying this is what we're gonna get, give yourself a little budget and and let's make the best of what we can out of that in this room. That would be my recommendation, but I'm open to whatever you guys.
So if we were wanting a sound system, is that correct? And
Yeah, I
and
think like a
Bluetooth?
Bluetooth microphone system would, you know, it'd be a much smaller sound system, of course, because
Right.
of the size. Or it would be drastically reduced compared to that. And then just a public podium.
Right.
Like there.
Do we want to keep the tables or do we want?
I think that's, you know, if we go
That's
with a
the-
small budget, that's.
Yeah, we're gonna have to keep, and that's why I'm asking, because I don't want to come up and say, oh, well, I thought we were going to.
Because if not, if we do want something nice, extravagant, it's gonna be more than that. to
Yeah,
get-
so I don't think extravagant is
Okay.
our cup of tea, but,
Well, I think,
so.
Maybe new chair.
Maybe new chairs. New chairs.
well, we sit in them for a while,
Yeah.
but I think that, you know, so far what I've seen,
They're not comfortable.
Deb and folks, you know, they've, every time I come in here, it looks different.
Yeah.
And they're very
Deb
creative and
people are doing a good job.
they're doing a great job. And I think we could start with even just one thing. And then if we see that we need something else, you know, I mean, I do understand what you're saying about the chairs. And, you know, what do we think about the chairs for our guests? You know, because
Yeah.
those are plastic and it might encourage them to leave earlier. Do we want them to be comfortable? Or do we want
It'd be
them,
nice. if
you know, I mean,
they-
we have I'm not saying you're a big man, but you're a big man, and how comfortable is that chair back there for you? I know you can't comment because you're not allowed to, but, but I think, you know, we can look at what your expectations are, because you do spend a lot of time here, and, you know, we do have to make sure that you're comfortable, because the more comfortable you are, the better you can make a decision. And we're gonna have some tough decisions this year.
There's some nice
Big jackets.
things they could do.
Have behind
Paint.
45. Okay, so let's go with 5,000 and hopefully, you know, talk to Mark and make sure that will take care of a Bluetooth sound system. I don't know, what does a Bluetooth sound system take?
We did, when I did
I mean, am I going to have to buy something personal to hear?
no, it's essentially just microphones to pick up everyone's sound better. And then if we want to give a microphone to someone on a podium when they're speaking and things like that.
Support for the playground.
Okay. So 5,000, you think will do it? Okay. All right. Got it down, $5,000. You're going to do wonders, miracles. STEM, I gave Kyle some information that came through to me on a STEM program. And I asked him to do some research on them to see if it was worth the money and if it wasn't. And I know that's not his cup of tea to look and analyze a program, but to see if it's money worthy.
So essentially, my take on this was there are several different companies right now knowing that everybody has extra money. And this company specializes in how to implement STEM into curriculum. So as soon as that came, I
Good.
said, this is
That's where it
not
needs to go.
my decision. I don't know where it falls in. I saw you go, Jim. And I don't want to speak for Jim. Essentially, I don't know where it falls in with planning and trying to get it into things already in process. So that's kind of where I'm.
Jim.
Yeah. Well, I haven't really reviewed that particular one. I know that that's been a topic that has come up in the past. And, I think there's always going to be opportunity where we might have a setting that wants to potentially be involved in some of that type of work. I would like, if that's something we decide we'd like to do, I feel like maybe there's a pilot situation we could look at, or it's hard to just like instantly integrate it into everything that we already have going on.
So I was just thinking that maybe next year, just slowly work our way through it, not rush it, make
Yeah.
sure we get the right program. Chris, you're good at this. You and Tammy have been reviewing this stuff. So what do you guys think?
Like Kyle said, there's so many companies. There's everything from middle school to high school to elective classes to coding. But then there's also companies that just help you, help your curriculum director develop it, fit the needs of your school if you wanted to implement it at a K-5, where you're just starting to kind of introduce it to them in that building, and then kind of plant the seed of interest for middle school. Everything I found, it really isn't, if it like real STEM learning, then it's going to be, unless you have a specialty school like that here, it's going to be middle school and above. So if we could find small programs or small tasks or lessons that can just be utilized in elementary school, you can do that.
I think, in saying STEM,
Yeah.
it's so huge. And so it's like, so what is the focal point? So if you start with like, let's say robotics, you can start robotics at a very young age, and you can start one strand that moves up. So you start it, let's say, at the high school, and then you drop it down to the mid school and then the elementary, or you build it backwards. You build it the other way, but there's a focus there. So people can really thrive in one area. You have coding. People can really thrive in coding and focus on a spot so that people can anchor themselves. And we can pitch it to the community, and you build small to go grand, because sometimes just the concept of STEM it's so big that even like for a teacher thinking about teaching it, it can be a little overwhelming. And the thing is what do we want out of STEM? Generally what people say they want out of STEM is critical thinkers, problem-based solvers, good communicators, collaboration with kids, team building. So when we look at that, what do we see are the needs? So I usually, when I think about things like this, I look around the community and I think, what does this community need? What do our seniors need to do? What do we want them to do? Whether they're going to college or not, what skills do they need? And then when we look at STEM, what I would like to do is sit down and have a conversation. What do you really see STEM is? Because for me, when I hear STEM, it's kind of like, talking about anything that's this big, because it's enormous. And so I think sometimes we can get lost in I can get lost in the minutia of a big, big topic. And I think it might behoove us to get a little bit more focused, maybe look at our improvement planning and look at our 90-day plans and look at what our student data demonstrates that our kids need, and come up with a idea of STEM that is for Montezuma-Cortez School District RE1 in our valley, because it's the product. What is the product we're thinking of?
So I spoke to a principal in St. Vrain District, and they're a STEM school. They're a project focused school. That's when they started. They opened the doors. That's what it was. But then I also spoke to the director of curriculum for NC Lab, which was
Right.
created by an engineer out of Reno for rural schools. And they have a great platform for, say, middle school students or even high school students as an elective class where they can code or program.
Right.
And it really, the curriculum leads the student. Teacher doesn't even have to really know how to teach it.
Right.
If they can monitor the student's progress, if the student gets stuck, but it can also be utilized for students of need. She mentioned one student who had Asperger's, and he was on this really simple project that he was working on and was constantly doing it wrong. But if she tried to interact or interject, he got really upset. And so at the end of the day two, it finally got it right. And it was just jubilation. He was so overwhelmed with joy because he figured it out. And so, yeah, so sometimes STEM can be something that you can use to build, great technological minds, but it can also be used to.
And I'm sure you're familiar with STEAM. So, and I always like to throw the arts in there because I think, one of the gifts of public education is the concept that, we are a well-rounded organization that provides opportunities for kids that might not otherwise get them. And I know we already have a very robust arts side of us, but I think it would be beneficial to look into that as well, integrating the arts and giving, we do provide education to a lot of kids that don't get opportunities at home. And the more that we can provide here in the broader framework that's done well, I think goes a long way.
One of the challenges that teachers face is not being able to give realistic problems. I mean, I think we've gotten better at it, but we still have a ways to go to get students to grab on to real problems where they can collect the data, where they can analyze reasonable sets of data. And in order to be able to do that, you have to know how to code. And so I think that's really an important part that cuts across particularly the science disciplines, but even if you look at arts, a lot of art involves projections, for example. Well, okay, projections involve coding. I mean, these can get to be fairly messy mathematical problems that are relatively simple. So, and the other thing that we still basically need more of is integration between math courses, biology, and all of that. And obviously the STEM or the STEAM gives you the opportunity to do that. But I think it's, it needs to be looked at pretty carefully in terms of where you want to go. And because, as Chris said, there are all kind of companies that do this. And, I'm sure there are some that do it very well and some that don't do it so well. And you really want to, as best you can, you want to be able to start with somewhere and be able to, know that you can continue on that path for a while. Anyway.
I remember in 2019 when we went to CASB, I believe Jack was in the breakout session. Canyon City totally shook their curriculum and made it fit and had STEM part of it to meet those cross sections to integrate math, science, literature, language arts, with horticulture, but it met their needs. So my plan board is to reach out to Canyon City because they gave a great presentation of how they did that. And they did do it, I think it was high school, middle school, I can't remember where they
I think that's
started.
right.
And then they're moving down and shaking up. I'm not saying shaking up for that, but they had to fit it for their needs.
It's a change.
So I want to reach out to them and maybe at some point in the next couple months or so, have them present the presentation to us.
That'd be great. So if you're doing that, do you want to keep in contact with Jim?
Absolutely.
Please.
So that, because since he's curriculum, and I would like to see us be able to do something next school year, not this school year,
Because
but next
it's
school
going to
year.
integrate already our homegrown initiative. Just that, if we can do something like that. I don't know, but I will definitely CC you on the
And
emails I
Chris.
send out, and Chris, yeah.
You see him on everything, stuff like that anyway, so.
And what I might
yeah.
recommend too is, we need to engage our scientists, the people that are science driven, like at the high school, the mid school. I'm sure we have people at the elementary, but get them in kind of at the ground level so that we can get their input on what they see. And do we have any like great science? I know we do, but like it would be nice to see like local people. Like even the other day I was talking to this guy and you know, they're using a lot of drones to identify fencing needs. They're using a lot, you know, the columbines are being driven, but they're not, you know, they're not being manned. So, you know, our ranchers, ag-based people, like they're in this and they know what's going on, and who can we engage from like the community that, I mean, this is all STEM and it's all science and it's all like, it's amazing. Like, so I was just sitting there the other day and this guy, I don't know if he was just like trying to show me that he was kind of cool, but he just lifted this drone up into the air, like, and he was just like, look at this. And he was taking snapshots and he was showing me his little thing. And, you know, it was just amazing. And to me, it's like, we have a lot of things, like you said, with Black Canyon City, they're right here. And so I think we really need to engage our teachers at the beginning, because we don't want to do this to them, but we want to make sure that our kids, like we're thinking 20 years down the line, we're not thinking about today.
Easily identify those needs.
Right.
We have some excellent teachers. So-
Yeah, and we have some excellent community members who are really smart that I think it really is a great opportunity if people have time. I mean, I know a lot of people are struggling right now, but if we can find people who have time to add to the conversation, I think it could be a compelling conversation that could help us, you know, make that shift, because it's really scary for teachers, you know, like right now people are freaking out about the variant, you know, which is fair. And there's a lot of different sides to it, of course, again, but it's, I think we need to be strategic. I really believe in STEM and I really believe in STEAM, and I really believe in looking at project-based opportunities that are real. We have a lot of kids that bully kids at the middle school. And sometimes I think we keep kids apart and we don't teach them really how to have crucial conversations or conversations where they can problem solve and get through something. And the whole concept of STEAM and STEM builds around fostering conversations to solve a problem. And so it helps with the whole like behavior management, like it goes all the way down the line.
So just for my clarification, this is universally supported by our board is to.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
because even, I mean.
we've been talking about it for a year or so,
I mean,
2 years.
Like Jen, that Jack said about coding, it's like, I let my son play the creative aspect of Minecraft.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's like a total mindset. I'm like, because he starts talking about it and stuff. But then he starts talking about it and he's telling me all the things he's doing, and I'm like, it's totally coded.
Right.
In this game, it's completely coded. You have to add all these little aspects to it to make the program run.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
I have Minecraft on my iPad, but I have 4 grandkids at home.
I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
So I mean,
It's strategic.
Yes, very much
Yeah.
so.
Well, and
Maybe it
I
does-
apologize. I mean, I didn't mean to sound ignorant on that. I just, that's a place where a fire starts, right?
Right.
That's where we
Right.
start
So-
to develop support and a movement begins. So
So
that's,
we have our direction. Tammy's going to reach out and she's going to CC Jim and Chris and the rest of the board, please.
and I think another place,
Well, sorry.
Tammy, for us to look might be Colorado State. I mean, I know they do a lot of ag stuff in the area.
They do.
And
Oh, that would be a lot of fun.
they,
And they partner with us.
Yeah, no, and I love them because they come with evidence-based.
Yes. You know.
And even,
I love them. They, my granddaughter, they gave her a $20,000 grant scholarship because they partner with us. And they're willing
Thanks,
to
Ryan.
do so much with us.
Right.
Oh, I have.
Sorry, 5:00 calls early.
Bye. That's what Jack says too. So, yeah, I think that we need to reach out to CSU and just, yeah.
I think I took some of the thunder from Chris. It was just the fact that when those kids are being invested in coding.
Yeah.
That whole excitement of learning how to make
Isn't that
their world
awesome?
bigger and, building this. I mean, there's games where they have, but it's just that they're engaging.
Yeah.
The whole
so-
excitement and I'm learning math, I'm learning dimensions, I'm learning.
well, and like all of
But
the,
it's fun.
all of the great things you saw at the middle school are a result of the school to farm project. So,
Right.
I mean, there's a tie there that
Yeah, absolutely.
we definitely need to continue
Yeah.
to foster.
I think it has to be a real clear, actionable item for us because it's a year-to-year process that you build and it has to almost be like a strategic piece of your plan. So we have direction to follow. Because, right, just saying that it's cool and it's neat is fun and we all know the benefits of it. But the underlying foundational philosophy of instruction is project-based learning.
Right.
And so we don't have that philosophy here. So is that something that if we're gonna look at and think about, or, so the picture is broad and exciting, but for us, a real actionable item, maybe after Canyon City's presentation,
Yeah.
you
that
could
is-
give us, right now it's kind of a pie in the sky, but we need, okay, our strategic plan says we want to do this and we have 5 years.
Mhm.
So go.
and Mancus is project-based.
So is Dolores.
And so I think when we look at like the strategic plan that was developed expires 2021. And so that was a 3-year strategic plan. And so we have an opportunity
Yeah.
to adapt, modify, and look at, how we build off of the strengths off of that strategic plan, but then we start, entering things and focus points, because it's similar to looking at our, improvement plans. We have to connect the dots so that our administration and our teachers aren't like this, but it's our job to create a unified goal,
Right.
vision, and then articulate it so that they can be successful in implementation. Because if we just say we're doing STEM,
But
it's like,
that's a broad area.
right. And so I think the more we can focus, and maybe we start with, let's say it's coding, or we start with whatever. I mean, we can pick 1,000 things, but I think we start somewhere and we start small and concentrated, and then we build upon it as we go.
I think that's what I found at NC Lab out of Reno, when I spoke to that lady, curriculum builder. She's like, if you identify the need in your district and say you want to do it for 7th graders, it's a start.
Yeah.
For example, she's like, call me. She will build the program for,
Cool.
That's great.
So
yeah. I mean,
you
it's-
guys got your work cut out for you. So can you think that by
do it.
October,
Yeah.
we can
Oh, I
meet
bet.
and talk
Yeah.
and have and start our game plan?
I think we could get the skeleton and get the
Well,
conversation.
well, that's why, once you get the skeleton, then you flesh it out, but you have to have a skeleton to start.
I'll put you in touch.
Yeah,
Okay,
please do.
great, fantastic, I'm excited now. My school year calendar, I had that put on because Reese said that you were wanting to get a committee going to start early on.
Mhm.
And so I just was.
I
putting
didn't
that
know
on there so
how
that
you
could-
all feel about that. I generally like to get not like the whole calendar done, but just like the days of what the vacations are done early, and then we fill in the blanks later on. And I don't know, have you guys utilized the committee before?
Somewhat, I think that it was,
Well, I don't know that, because if we're talking about the school calendar, like how many days we're planning on going, what, when start end dates, this like, I mean, this is like year 2 of when we were supposed to have a committee.
yeah, so
To really dissect it and make it.
are we gonna do 4-day or are we gonna
Yeah,
do
and
5-day?
you have to make
Are
it,
we gonna have,
yeah,
are we gonna do summer school or hey, let's just do year
fair to
round.
every department, because,
Yeah,
I mean, the 4-day really benefits the teachers and the students sometimes, but then you have,
Cuts down
the
absences with
transportation
sports,
and then,
yeah.
everybody else that, I mean,
It's
that's what that was my vision for the whole committee, was have something put in place that's gonna benefit every department.
When I was talking to a person at the case conference where they're a 4-day, but Friday, all kids who want to come to school, and they provide other
activities,
things like enrichment. And so transportation is still rolling, food is still happening. So,
and then you pay the teachers extra if they want to be there?
well, it would just be, I think, from what I understand, the teachers were there for contract services. So,
So the
So it's like
kids
they're-
just had 4-day, not the staff.
I might have to reach out to them. I might be wrong. Maybe they worked with someone like the Pinion Project, but I don't see how Pinion Project could handle all of our kids. But they didn't have 100% participation of all
No, I doubt if
kids.
we would too.
Most of the
But-
districts, there's 121 out of 178 districts that are 4-day in
Yes.
Colorado. And most, like 90% of them, started a Friday program thinking it would be a huge need. And within the first year, the need was gone. Parents adjusted, students adjusted, and preferred. But they also, if you read the CDE manual on 4-day-a-week schools, they recommend you keep it in place for 3 years before you cancel it, because it takes that long to flush out everything and then to make a wise decision on, do we keep this or not? But the Friday programs, there's a lot of viable ways. You guys know I just went through all of this and did all the research and put all the options in for Fridays. And there are so many community partners that have grants to pay for Friday projects, Friday programs. School to Farm has a Friday morning program for elementary. The San Juan Mountain Association has an afternoon program for secondary, and it doesn't require your staff be there. If you require contract days on Fridays for your staff, it shoots yourself in the foot with the whole purpose.
What about the folks who aren't contracted,
Like
like food
classified
service?
staff.
Yeah,
Well, for food service, we opted for a grab and go on Fridays. They can
Right.
take food for those who needed it, who are
right.
food insecure. They
Right.
can grab and go, and
So they're
then,
still working.
the grab and goes are there on Friday. Food service doesn't have to work on Fridays. It's all grab and go options.
But so,
Some of them can
there-
if you choose, but
so then what do you do for minimizing hours?
Yeah,
That's what I'm
See, that's a-
meaning.
that's
So
a
like for
concern.
bus drivers, for,
transportation.
for food service, bus drivers, people who are classified that
Yes.
are hourly.
right. And when you put it to, this is what was so
Oh,
mind
This
boggling.
is what you said the other
When
day.
you put it to paper and pencil,
Right.
and the hours, because everyone increases a solid hour. You go from 7.5 to 8.5 as your base hours. When you put it to the paper with the finance director, it actually came out better for the hourly employees. The only ones who we had to adjust their wage were the bus drivers, and we took them up a little bit because they aren't driving as many hours. But the rest of them, you take 7.5 times your 165 school days versus, Jack's getting on it, versus 8.5 times 144 or 140 school days. And you see the bottom line number, the hourly employees are actually working more hours in the 4-day than they were in the 5-day. It's very strange how it worked out. I almost didn't believe it myself, but we set two major requirements. The first one was students had to have more seat time in the classroom or we wouldn't approve a 4-day. And the second one was a goal for teacher retention and buy-in. So those are our two spoken goals. And when we put a paper and pencil to it, students were in the classrooms more than they were with the 5 days. And our hours weren't that early and weren't that late. We extended 15 on each side. That was it. And the issue here is we have to do something with the bus transportation. It's got to go back to single routes.
Yeah, well, and we're looking at that October, after our October count to see where we're at.
And I can't help but believe that that's gonna help with our teacher retention.
Oh.
And and being
Our
able to
athletes,
hire
yeah.
staff.
Well,
I mean, right
parents can do
now.
appointments, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, the athletes.
Well,
business
you
runs,
know,
Fridays.
yeah,
That's the problem.
Misconception in our community is, the dentists don't work on Fridays here.
Yeah, well,
I think if Cortez goes to 4-day though, we
They
can talk to all the healthcare
we did,
professionals
when
about
it was 4
switching.
days the last time, we talked to the professionals and the dentists and stuff. And they said, oh yeah, we'll start staying open for you for that day.
Or take Mondays off.
Yeah,
instead
take
of
a different
Fridays.
day off.
I mean,
So-
I can't help but believe that this would help.
I do
And
too.
my
I mean, how many teachers
But-
are we still looking for right now?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we're
Probably
looking for
7 core teachers. And then we need special education teachers at Kemper and Minot. Minot has no sped teachers. Kemper needs 1 full-time teacher.
And secondary?
The high school lost 2 today. Lost 2?
And the middle school, I mean, I don't know
It
if
wasn't-
Drew can talk or.
Wasn't anything to do with the district, it was
Administration.
personal reasons.
So what are you looking for, Drew? You're looking for 5 teachers right now?
teaching positions.
Oh,
Yeah.
And what's the issue? What's?
It has been paid. This is honestly one of the things I want to hear because it has been paid. It's been a huge factor. The last one, I had a conversation with somebody and it directly related before because they actually are considering opting their kids out of the district and going to Dolores because they said if my kids aren't Dolores, I can't teach in Cortez because the money difference.
And we all share our kids,
Yeah.
you know, both,
Yeah.
you know, we share Mancus, we share Dolores, we share, you know, we have teachers and staff who live in all those communities, and then we have kids who go to all different schools. And so
And I know some families that have kids in different.
They do,
communities.
yeah.
it's smart to align.
And the other issue is spring break.
Oh,
I mean, we don't even align
We
spring
don't
break.
No, I think we did
And
once.
and that's some of the stuff that we need on our calendar committee.
On the
Exactly.
calendars,
You have-
the superintendents did consult on spring break. It's just that a couple decided not to align.
Well, and historically, the issue with spring
Well,
break
let's not forget PCC.
Yeah, and that's
Because,
exactly
I
the
mean,
point.
when I was the president out there for that board, I fought hard for everybody to be on the same calendar and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, because you had poor kids who were in concurrent enrollment
Yeah.
classes that were still in school for PCC while the district was on spring break.
Yeah.
And
So-
vice versa, so.
Are you waving your at me?
I just want to share one thing, and again, it's not school calendar related, but to the point of trying to give teachers a reason to want to stay here. In my looking through the facility master plan and trying to come up with dollars for that, I also was looking at salaries, and just for your FYI, if a teacher started step 0 in 2006, they're only making $2,000 more today if they start on step 0. I don't know,
We've talked about that.
I don't know
Yeah, the base.
how
Building the
that,
base.
if you're not accounting for inflation every year or every couple of years, we're in this position. We pay less than Dolores,
Yes, we do.
Mancus, we barely beat Dove Creek.
And so we need to do something.
And so, yeah, exactly. And so we have all these,
And
so-
money
so-
talks,
so-
money matters, quality of life
And,
thing.
you know, and I talked to Lori one time and I said, what can we cut out? What programs are we supplementing, our supplemental stuff? What can we get rid of? So that we can give our teachers more money? Because I don't, and this is a personal thing. I do not believe that if you buy a math program that fits CDE standards, Why do you need to buy an extra program to supplement it? I mean, and we do. I know we do. And that's money that could go to teachers.
Programs
and-
don't typically cover salary and benefits.
No,
though,
no,
because it's
but
the
we wouldn't
huge,
have to, we wouldn't, if we quit
Yeah.
picking
you're
out
right.
programs that
Yeah.
we have to supplement, then we would have spare
Be more
money
careful,
for salaries.
Well, and I think too, one
So-
thing that we've been doing is we've been looking at all these stipends that we have, and we have so many stipends and clubs and people, like certain people, just, they do all these stipends and how, what are just, we're just looking at all these different opportunities to how we're spending things and just trying to get everything more lined up so that we can find pockets of cash.
Yeah, and that's what we need to do, so.
And
so
we need to
can
build the
give them more
base,
money.
because $2,000, I mean, it's a little ridiculous. And now the scary thing is, you know, you had people like me moving to town. And now people really can't afford to buy anything.
So,
And so we have to figure out a way to let people have a quality life, because we're not the only community, and I know I've said this a bunch, but many communities are dealing with housing issues. And, you know, if we're not paying our teachers adequately, they won't stay
and they
because
don't,
they can't, because they have to live.
and they don't.
And kids are expensive.
Can I add something to that? Where we are right now, I can say at the middle school, for our electives, we are 3 elective shorts. We've got art, PE, and world language. We have not had a single applicant for world language for 3.5 months. Art and PE, you think that that's something, we've been multiple offers and have been denied because of pay. And my concern, in the high school lost an elective teacher today, they're down at least 2 now that I know. What's going to happen as a fallout of this is now we're looking at where our staff that are our elective teachers are going to be having class sizes above 30. So you're not only having problems with attracting teachers, but now we're sending these low-paid teachers with 30+ kids and then adding more on the place.
And many times they're first year or second year teachers, and they're still trying to
that
figure it
retention
out.
factor is good. Like,
Yeah.
I'm concerned right now with my fact that, okay, I gotta get teachers to start this year, but in 3 months, if we're not finding those teachers, I'm starting to get really concerned about the retention. So
Well,
They're gonna lose those people.
and another thing to consider, and I think I brought this up before, but one thing that we've looked at in the past is this thing called K-12 Elevate, which is you train your parapros to manage a classroom, but then K-12 Elevate brings in via it brings in a Colorado certified teacher that comes in, but they train the parapro that is ours. And so we pay this company, but they provide the electives. And similar to like what we did with Zoom, but it's like they follow all the laws. It's really well done, and it's worked really well in places that, because I've had jobs that were open for a very long time. And sometimes it's hard for people to get their head around, but once you see it working and you see a high quality teacher teaching here and a parapro that's trained by them, but it is ours in the classroom, it's not that bad of a situation, and it is solution driven, because then you're not overcrowding classrooms and you're not putting that pressure. But if we're what we can do is we can put that in the next work study session, because we have to train them. But it's an option
Because I have a lot of questions about that.
to look at as we look at a framework of we don't have enough teachers.
But we've also got to pay those parents more too.
Yeah, if they're doing.
Right.
But then what happens if we hire a teacher and then shoot that para back into being a parent? You know, just, you know what I'm
Well,
saying?
I think to
So-
follow up on your point, if you go to a 4-day week, the likelihood that you will ever get additional money from this county is 0.
Right.
You're gonna be stuck with whatever that is forever. And people are gonna say, and I've heard this, said, by God, you know, like I have to work 6 days a
Yes.
week. I
Right.
get, no vacation, or maybe a couple of weeks of vacation. You guys work you guys basically work 8 months a year and you work 4 days a week.
Right.
Well, if anything good came from COVID, we figured out how parents figured it out.
Yeah.
They figured it out.
How to-
You know, how to get by with 5 days a week, you know, or, you know, because they weren't in school sometimes. So, I mean, a lot of this, it got figured out when you had to.
So,
I
can
think
we get
it's-
some community members on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
So-
I see
so
both
let's-
sides.
Let's move because we can't make a decision. This needs,
I think it ties into the master.
in terms of, ties in with a lot of stuff. So
I wish you luck, Drew.
I do too. My heart goes out to
Yeah.
you. And to the teachers whose classrooms are gonna be.
And just for the
overcrowded.
record, athletic kids actually got more school time when they had Fridays off.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
So,
My kids had more school time.
Rural school resolution. I had Deb send it out. Did you guys get it? Did you read it?
Mhm.
Thanks to Deb,
Did you read it?
thanks to Jack and Tammy. Rich and I worked on it some, but they were the main instigator.
I just gave the skeleton all kudos to Judy and Jack, working
Yeah.
many hours
I
on
mean,
it.
we all met and laid down what we wanted to say, and then Tammy gave us the skeleton, and then Jack, plus his very wonderful significant other, on her birthday, worked on that for us.
Yeah, I think the main thing was basically here to keep it fairly simple, straightforward, not just put a bunch of stuff in there, but items that we've found from our conversations with people in other districts that are fairly common, so that we can hopefully get a fair number of people in rural districts to go in with it. We basically sort of tried to make the thing as easy for CASB to deal with as possible. So I hope and I think that there's a reasonable chance that the CASB will go forward with it.
So is everybody okay with it, for us to submit it? Is there any changes you would like to make? Do you want to submit it since your legislation, or do you want me to?
I would prefer to present or to submit it because as your delegate, I would be the one.
You're the one who
having
has to
speak
defend it, yes.
So if it goes to legislation in fall, it comes before delegates to
In
vote.
October, yeah. You have to address it.
Speak to it, so I would
Yeah.
prefer to. And
submit it.
like I said, Jack and Judy did a great job, so I was able to go in there and
Just plug it into the right place.
yes, in the right places and copy and paste.
Well, Tammy, I've closed you up tonight with lots of extra duties.
Huh.
Between you and Chris, you guys are awesome. Is there anything else that needs to come before the board?
All I have is, Liz gave me a Post-it to give to you in regards to the health advisory.
Oh, thank you.
And I guess there was an invite sent out.
I
You
did
were
that.
on there.
You got that invite, maybe we sent it to the wrong place.
Yeah.
But,
I
That's-
resent it tonight.
oh, she resent it.
as
Thank you.
well, yeah.
Okay. Did you send it my school address?
I did. It was sent to your school address, but I redid it.
Okay. So I will.
Maybe it went to junk.
It might have. So, but now that I know it's there, I'll know
Yeah.
where to look for it at. So I adjourned this meeting at 9:45.